All right, hey everyone, and welcome to the JDRF stream of The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 3. Today, we're joined by Eric Parsons and Harrison Pink. Welcome, guys. Hi,
Hi,
how are y'all
Hello.
doing?
Good.
doing great.
Yeah,
Happy to be here.
yeah. Can y'all tell me a little bit of what y'all did on Episode 3 of The Walking Dead?
Sure.
Positions all?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I was the game designer, which at Telltale is kind of an odd one. We have a designer and a director, and on episode 3, actually, we started having designer and writer and director because we realized, like, halfway into the season that writing at this caliber level was really a lot of work on top of already designing all of the sort of like player interactions. So that work was shifted over to Sean Vanneman, but I was sort of involved in kind of coming up with scenarios, breaking the story, and then sort of making sure that the player, like what the player was doing in each scene, was always pushing the story forward.
Nice.
I was the director on the episode, and the directing at Telltale was kind of a being the creative vision holder or focal point. It's not the right word. Like the I've already blown it.
The visual lord of all visuals.
Get outta
I wouldn't
here.
actually do anything, but I would tell everyone else how they should be doing things.
That's important. That's important.
But yeah, a lot of time in production on the episode, a lot of time working with the choreography team. And before the episode was in production, I'd be in sometime in the writer's room, not as involved as the writing and design team, but having some familiarity with the story as it's being broken, and then kind of shepherding it along in the production process.
Okay, wonderful. Thank y'all so much for coming on to the stream. Obviously.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. If I'm gonna take a moment to just explain to everyone in the chat what JDRF is. So JDRF, who we're streaming for, my name's Caleb, Calebrated Gamer. I've got my own Twitch channel. I'm streaming on JDRF, which is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and what they do is they raise money and do research to help find a cure for type 1 diabetes. All the money, if any is donated tonight, will go directly to JRF to help find a cure, as well as there's this amazing Humble Bundle, which will be in the chat in just a second, or already is if you scroll up, where basically you can buy all the Telltale Walking Dead games, Telltale's Batman, there's Wolf Among Us, as well as 2 games, Oxenfree and Heaven's Vault. And if you pay anywhere from like $1 to $15, you get all those games, and the proceeds go to JDRF. So highly recommend checking that out if anyone in the chat has Steam or a computer that can play games and wants to try these games out for themselves.
There's a small indie piece of software called Steam. I don't know, not a lot of people have.
So many of my followers, they might have a console here or there, but they like don't have the games I play, which is why they watch. So, I try
That's
to.
fair. Yeah, that's cool.
So, but they are awesome games. And then of course, yesterday, we had Sean and Jake on, 2 other developers of The Walking Dead Season 1, and it was amazing. We raised $2,000. I don't know if we'll be able to do something close to that tonight, but
Let's try.
But we will try. We will try.
No promises, but
Yeah, right.
Yes.
No pressure on us, right?
Yeah.
We can't leave until we
Right,
match $2,000.
right.
Oh, shoot.
We're in for the long call. We'll be like calling friends, like, please just donate $10. Like, I want to go home to
I
my
need
kids.
to sleep.
Yeah. Right. But is there anything specific in y'all's mind y'all can think of right now that you remember about working on episode 3, the episode we're going to be playing tonight? Anything?
I mean,
Anything
I
stick
definitely
out?
it was my first project at Telltale.
Wow.
So I had gotten hired, and I had worked at a small sort of like mobile startup in Atlanta, Georgia, for a number of years, and then I got hired at Telltale, and they're like, "You're gonna be on The Walking Dead." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I can't wait." I get there, and Sean and Jake are sort of like knee deep in building, kind of figuring out the season, figuring out if it's gonna be first person or third person. So I get there, and like they're like, "Hey, you're on episode 3," and like I just kind of got like put in a dinghy and kicked off into the sea. Like, just start figuring that stuff out while we just figure out what the whole game is generally. And so it was one of those, like, I need to learn while kind of figuring out the Telltale style of gameplay, while also sort of learning from the experience. And Sean and Jake were trying to teach and spend time like tutoring and like getting me up to speed on like the way that Telltale makes stuff, while also trying to shepherd this massive project, which is
Right.
incredible amount of work for them to have to do. So, you know, it was a very much like a right place and right time thing for me personally. I got to see the like pre-Walking Dead Telltale. They were still working on finishing up Jurassic Park at the time.
Wow.
And so it was definitely like I came in ready to make what I like a classic Telltale game. Like, I played all of Monkey Island, I played all of Back to the Future, and so I was like, all right, yeah, puzzles and jokes, and like, awesome, got it. That's in my wheelhouse. But like episode 1, if you remember playing it, like has a decent amount of like small-ish puzzles. But as you see through the season, like that stuff goes away. I snuck in a bunch. We'll get to when we play the game, we get to them, you'll see like, yep, that's very clearly a Harrison puzzle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that stuff kind of starting to get stripped out. So like my first like version of designing / writing episode 3 was like completely off what episode 1 ended up being, and we had to kind of go back and say like, well, this is what this game is now. So it was a really interesting process of like learning a Telltale game, but then also on top, like layered on top of that, was learning this new kind of way of making a Telltale game. It was really interesting. It was a lot of work, but it was really, really cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember by the time we were deep into season 3, definitely episode 1 was out. And
episode 3 or season 3?
Did I say season 3?
Yeah, episode.
Yeah, I'm a time traveler. Yes, episode 3.
I was like, wow.
But yeah, by the time we were in production on episode 3, I think episode 1 was out. Episode 2 might have been out. I know there was a lengthy gap between episode 1 releasing and episode 2 releasing. But I feel like by the time we were deep in it, we were starting to get a sense of the buzz that the game was getting. And so I had worked at Telltale for like 4 years by the time we started working on Walking Dead. So I'd seen some of the previous Telltale, and yeah, I think by the time we were into episode 3, you could kind of feel that this was becoming something different, and all the pressure that went along with that, and the pressure on myself, the increased sense of pressure around the studio, just pressure on all directions. But it was also very exciting because all that, mostly all the feedback we were getting was really positive. So it was an exciting and terrifying time to be working.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. It was so cool to hear from Sean and Jake yesterday that there was talk of the game being like a first person like game. Like they had to change some things to make the third person, work with the shot, with all the camera shots there are. I can't even imagine this game being first person, but it could have been.
Yeah. It would have been a very different game. Who knows what that would have become.
I remember early like tests in the motor lodge, like that long motor lodge sequence where you would like, you get all the pieces and you break through the window and you get like the like screwdriver and stuff. I remember Eric, you choring a bunch of that. You like doing all the cinematic art for that scene, and it was all first person. And like how quickly you could get a first-person scene together, because you're literally just like smashing the camera through geometry, and it didn't have to look good because you couldn't see where the arms were floating around, and like it looked great because you just like the camera goes in, and like it was like the speed that stuff came together and looked really, really amazing for what Telltale had done up to that point was like really amazing.
Yeah, there were an amazing level of things you could hide. Swoosh.
Wasn't what I was trying to say.
Put your sins over here. Swoosh. Yeah. We're back.
Well, I mean, it works when you have when you do the scenes as like just with the cinematography that y'all chose to go with. Not only did it work really well for the drama and the tense moments, but like, you know, getting that over the shoulder shot of Lee, or like, you know, zooming real close into Larry's face, like, you know, right before the salt lick happens. Like, there's just a lot of, you know, you get to hide like little things here and there, but more importantly, it just looks really good. Like, y'all done an amazing job.
Yeah, that was all Eric. I didn't have anything to do with that.
that was all.
And the rest of the cinematic artists. Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
A lot of really talented people, all working really hard to make it look
Absolutely.
great.
Oh yeah. Do y'all want to take some questions from the chat if there's any questions about episode 3 or in general?
Definitely.
So if anyone has questions in the chat, let us know. I'll try to answer what I can.
Yeah, how much have you absorbed of the development process at this point?
Right.
Have you field the questions if you could?
Right. Yeah. Right. I'm trying to. I'm prepared for the quiz at the end of the stream. JDRF asked, "When's the last time you guys played this game?"
Oh man. Probably while I was still working at Telltale. So like, I think while we were still working on season 2, was probably the last time I like sat and played the whole thing through. I mean, we played it probably hundreds of times. Like, if you look at my Steam, like, hours played in The Walking Dead, it's like 1,000, just because it logged all of our work hours. But I think the last time I sat and played it was probably while we were working on season 2.
Yeah, I think I'd be similar. And I know after it came out, we did some streaming events and in the studio and with the press. So probably the last time I actually played, or the closest I came to playing it, was in one of those. I know my brother-in-law played through it a few years ago, and I kind of half watched over his shoulder. So that's the last time I witnessed any of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Wow. They Cypher asked, what did you learn working on this episode specifically that you took to other game projects?
Ooh.
Well, Cypher, I learned how to detach a train from a cart.
Yeah, I think there's some real train controls in this game.
Oh, I went real ham on it. I mean, Brian Gillies, the artist, like just knocked out a full train with like all of the like compartments. And I watched a lot of like videos on how trains are like prepared to be like started up, and all of the things that can go wrong if you don't do it properly. Like you can bend rods and stuff if you don't release steam pressure. Wow. It's actually really fascinating. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos on that, but I don't think that's what the question was. I think one of the things that, so like I said earlier, we moved from like the designer also being the writer to the designer. There is a designer and there is a writer and there's a director on this episode. Because originally I was the designer and writer, and I wrote a whole episode, and it was not very good, to be fair. And poor Sean Vandeman had to come in behind me while trying to teach me what a Telltale game was, and also like take up the burden of writing this entire episode, because I personally hadn't had a lot of experience writing a sort of like ensemble cast before. So voice, like a character's voice, was a new concept to me. And by voice, I don't mean like the way they sound like, but like what. Right. How their personality comes out in the way that they choose their words, or the kinds of things that they would say in their word choices. And like, I had never really considered that. So basically all of the characters in episode 3, the original script, they'd all just sounded like me. And was not good. So learning how to figure out a character's personality and write to that was something that I think I'm learning to this day. But that was the first time that had really been introduced to me as a writing concept, because I have no formal like writing training. I don't have an English degree or anything like that. So like really getting to the nitty gritty of what it takes to make not only a good dialogue based game, but like a good branching dialogue based game was a super interesting and like eye-opening experience that I definitely refer back to this day.
I think I learned to say I learned this implies that I solved this problem. A weakness that I noticed and continue to try to address. Partway through the production of this episode, I was definitely in a state of having lost the forest of the episode for the trees. I was working very hard, and at one point I kind of stepped back right before we had a review and realized, oh, this is not, like, people have been doing great work and it is not coming together as a cohesive episode, which was totally a failing on my part as the director. And we went into a review the next day and came out with some rewrites needed and some serious reworking, and it landed in a great place in the end. But that was a very hard part of the process. And I feel like some of that, maybe could have been a little less hard if I had kept things in focus a little better. So that's definitely part of the project leadership role I continue to work on.
Right. Well, of course,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course, that's all 2020, hindsight. Because, like, at the time, like, I mean, y'all were working on this, like, nonstop. This was y'all's project. So, looking back, of course, I think everyone's got stuff that they would change or, do different. But, I mean, people love this game and people love this episode. So, y'all did a great job.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we had an incredibly talented team that all pulled like 3 times their weight to really it was not any one decision that I personally made that made this thing how good it was. Like, there's a lot of stuff that as we'll get to the episode, we'll point stuff out, like that was the sound designer's idea or whatever. And it's like, I think part of being a good leader, or part of like being a vision holder, like Eric said, is knowing that you can't like control. You have to let control go to a certain amount, to a certain degree, and like source ideas from everywhere. And the more you tightly control something because you have this like very specific vision, the harder it is to really execute on it. And it's like a lot of folks might say, well, that's my like territory. Don't, like, I'm the designer. Don't like design for me. But I think it's really important to understand that like deciding what cool idea someone else had should go in the game because it fits for a number of other reasons is also game design. And so it also gets everyone on board and gets everyone feeling like it's theirs as well. It's not just like, the people shepherding the vision, it's everybody. It's because everyone's putting the blood, sweat, and tears into this project. So making sure that everyone feels like they own their piece of it is super, super important. I definitely learned that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had an incredible team where, in general, I don't remember people having ego about where ideas came from, and if you had a great idea, people were open to it. That's a really incredible thing to be a part of.
Yeah, for sure. Espion 9891 asks, what was the development of episode 3 like, as far as terms of story, cinematography, etc.?
As far as,
like, I guess, I'm trying to think of how to reword the question.
I mean, it's like definitely the darkest episode, right?
Yeah.
Or at least one of the darker episodes. So it was taxing on like an emotional level because of some of the content in the game.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so it was like day one. Here's episode 3. Here's what's going to happen in your episode. And like I got like a bullet point list of like 6 like events that were going to happen. It was just like dark. Like it just was like just worse and worse and worse. He's like, enjoy the next couple of years of your life making that.
Actually, that's a good thing to mention in answering the question. Like when you started on this episode earlier than I did, but it's not like you just had a blank page and like, right, Harrison, what do you think episode 3 should be? Like we had some amount of an outline and some bullet points of like where the plot was headed, that kind of dictated the bones of the episode, which I guess I probably shouldn't say what they are because maybe people haven't.
We're gonna get into it. Yeah, like
that's
Sean
why we're
and
here.
Jake definitely had the like season plan, and to my knowledge, and Jake might have other like inside knowledge in this, but it didn't really deviate that much based on like a lot of times in game development things will swing wildly behind the scenes before we get to building a thing but I remember like things did shift on the detail level. Like we once we were working on episode 3 and then episode 2 was getting like revamped because of episode 1 sort of reception that Sean and Jake talked about yesterday. And we did a little bit of work to like stitch the ending of 2 and the beginning of 3 together a little bit more. I feel like as far as like the antagonistic forces that we'll see when we start playing, to like make the whole thing sing better. But I don't feel like we really deviated from the like high level bullet points really at all. I think they were so strong that we were like, let's just execute on this as best we can.
Yeah, and I agree. There were definitely details that are characters that we felt need a little fleshing out, but nothing that changed the direction of a character arc or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, especially since y'all did post the episodes, one at a time. Like you can make little tweaks here and there based off of, fan criticism, but there's really not, I imagine, enough time to like make major changes based off of general fan feedback.
Sure. Yeah.
That's always funny reading that kind of feedback in like on like forums or Reddit or whatever. Where it's like, they're gonna change things based on what we see now, and we're already like writing episode 5. Like that's not how game development works. But I mean, it's a game about branching, so I kind of understand why people would think that.
Yeah, right. JDRF asked, were you fans of the show and comic before starting on the game?
I don't think the show was out by the time I started working on it.
I think it had, at least when I started, it had just started, like episode 1. Because I was in Atlanta. And I remember actually being late from coming back from lunch because they closed the roads for like a scene where they're driving a bus and a bunch of zombies are like running after them. Like they closed the road down to film that scene. So I think they had just like wrapped filming the first season, but I don't think it had come out yet at the time.
That sounds right to me. Yeah, I had not. I'd heard of it, but I hadn't read the comic before I started working on it. And I know when I found out I was going to be working on Walking Dead, I went out and bought the 48 issue compendium.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And read that in a weekend, and then had to have a little sit down and
right.
Yeah, get ready, gear yourself up for another couple of years of your life working on this tone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just saying that I forget what all happens in these episodes because I played this game probably a year ago and I only got through part of episode 4, so I haven't even played episode 5 yet. And but like episode 3,
all fine.
Yeah,
everything goes great.
It all works out.
It's sunshine and lollipops. Yeah, I'm sure. The mindset being that episode 3, I'm like, oh yeah, the train episode, I remember that. But then when y'all are talking about one of the darkest episodes, I'm like, oh no, I forgot about that.
When we get to that, we can talk a little bit about that. I mean, obviously Jake and Sean were the sort of the propellant pushing the story stuff more. But we were in the room when we were trying to figure out do we really want to do this? Is this a thing we really want to do? And it was a conversation for sure, because we were trying to, you know, be true to the show, be true to the comic, I should say, and they don't shy away from that stuff, but it's never used to like shock. It's like shocking gore or like shocking trauma. It's always in service of a specific story beat or a specific emotional beat in the story. So we have to just be very careful. We'll get to it when we get there, but like without like alluding to a thing no one has any idea what we're talking about. But like coming up with like really dark scenarios is not the difficulty. It's like executing on them in a way that doesn't feel like gratuitous or gleeful. You know, like that was, I think, the big struggle.
I think y'all found a good balance for sure, because I mean there are scenes where I just am like, this is so The Walking Dead, you know. I keep thinking back to that woman in episode was it 2 or 1? I guess it was, wow, it was 1. That feels like forever ago. Episode 1 where you have to stealth kill all the zombies, and then you're trying to save the woman just to find, you know, she's been bitten. And she doesn't want to be saved. And it was so sad and heartbreaking, but it was so like, well, it felt like a waste of time, but it also felt important. Like not a waste of time as far as like gameplay wise, but as far as like, wow, we did all this for nothing. But at the same time, totally, we gave her a chance to like have a way out from this like terrible, like, you know, path she was stuck on, and it messes with your head for sure.
Oh
yeah. Jake's been in the chat. I don't know if y'all can see the chat.
Hi, Jake.
Talking about Eric's beard being powerful and all sorts of other things.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, he was
my biggest accomplishment in quarantine.
Oh God. Yeah, he was mentioning the train being the thing in this episode, which like everyone calls it the train episode, which I guess because it is the most insane thing that happens, one of the more insane things that happens in this episode. But like it being a giant noisemaker, yeah, I can't remember. I feel like that was when we were talking about it, that just came up naturally, and you're like, you know, the zombies being attracted by noise was such an integral part of the earlier episodes. It felt like that was a thing that you as a person would be like, oh, cool, like this impenetrable fortress that just goes on rails. Nothing could ever happen that's bad about this. And then you look behind you a half a mile and you're like, oh.
Right. They've been following you the whole time.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought
incredible
that was...
boon.
Yes. I thought that was real clever.
Also incredible curse. Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. Were there other... I know JDRF also asked, Eric, did you direct games before Walking Dead? I'm wondering if the process felt different since the type of game had changed a bit.
Let's see. Yeah, I had directed an episode of Back to the Future before this episode.
Which one?
Also episode 3.
You love episode 3. Is it your favorite?
I love episode 3, yeah. In Walking Dead season 2, I got promoted to an episode 2, so, you know, gotta climb that ladder.
Right, yeah.
That Back to the Future episode is the first episode I directed, and yeah, that was definitely a different experience, just because the game was different. It had more of that previous era of Telltale, you know, puzzly stuff, and obviously the tone is way different. I guess similar in that it was still working from a licensed IP, so a lot of thought about like what does a story in this universe feel like, and what's different about characters in this versus another story, and how to kind of play in that specific sandbox. But yeah,
right.
It's the same and also different. My profound take.
Good answer.
Good answer.
That was a good answer.
It was. It's so cool to hear you talk about the Back to the Future game, because that was I grew up obsessed with Back to the Future. So when I found out they had a game that basically continues the story, I was like, of course I'm gonna play this. So that's really neat.
Yeah. My since we're talking about Back to the Future now, so part of the director role is to be in the voice actor sessions. So on Back to the Future, the first voice direction session I did was almost one with Christopher Lloyd. It ended up being my second one.
No.
But
That's cool.
that was a very exciting and terrifying prospect.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got this. No problem.
You're not a famous
That's
actor
intense.
from
Yeah.
my childhood and previous time. Yeah, no, for sure.
Please listen to me, a 25-year-old who knows what
Okay,
he's
Mr.
doing.
Lloyd, can you say that great
Can you
Scott
be more
line?
docky?
Right.
Yeah, I loved you in that movie.
Right.
It was good. He's great.
Have you ever seen Back to the Future? Like asking him these questions, like, yeah.
I was legit bummed that I got to Telltale too late to work on Back to the Future. I was so stoked to come up with what additional stories could be like in that universe.
Right.
It was so funny getting to Telltale, and because when I got hired, I had worked on my big inspiration before that was the Myst series and really crunchy puzzles with levers and crap, which you'll see in this episode. But I was cool. I've made a bunch of fan puzzles and stuff, so I kind of got my start just doing fan stuff. And I came to Telltale. I'm all right, ready to buckle down and make some item combination puzzles, some real LucasArtsy stuff. And that's kind of what everything had been up to that point. And so Walking Dead, like I said earlier, had some of that stuff early on, but it was immediately all of those things that you thought a Telltale game was, just put them to the side, and we're doing this entirely different emotional branching narrative game.
Right.
So strap up for that.
Yeah.
Whenever I tell people I made the train puzzle, it's either oh, that was great, or oh, you're a piece of crap for doing it.
Oh, you're the
I
reason
hate you or
I
I
was
love
stuck.
you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was very divisive, and I stand by it to this day. So I got the one Myst puzzle of my career in.
And yeah, because the only Telltale games I had played before The Walking Dead was Back to the Future, and then all the Sam & Max games. So I was used to the Telltale puzzles, of course this rubber chicken goes there, of course,
yeah, right.
This pencil's gonna be useful later, I just know it.
Yep.
So to play The Walking Dead and to go to episode 2 where you're you need to find the remote here, the battery's there, and to do the train puzzle.
Really simple stuff.
Yeah, but past that, I look back and I'm there really aren't a lot of puzzles, and there's not a lot of things to find. It's really just about experiencing and the choices you make, obviously being the major thing.
Yeah. I think that, and I think Jake and Sean mentioned this yesterday, but the further the story went on, the more the momentum kind of built. Puzzles just didn't feel right. They slow you down, they kind of make you get stuck, make you quit the game, and it gets harder and harder to justify them in a grounded game. In a game that's kind of goofy and wacky, yeah, you can make the rubber chicken turn into a thing you slide down a rope on, but in a world that's supposed to be grounded and narratively dark, combining objects together to solve a weird trampoline puzzle just doesn't fit, and it detracts from what the game was trying to do, right? So
Right.
I think it was the correct idea, especially when you get to episodes 4 and 5, which are an absolute sprint to the end, especially 5, which I think is half the length of a normal episode, just because it was just going at full speed from moment 1. Putting a puzzle in the middle of that sequence would have just been well, there goes all your tone and all your pacing.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, in terms of content shipped, episode 5 is just as big as another episode. It's just
Oh,
so
absolutely.
branchy.
Yeah,
In one
that's
playthrough,
exactly
you
what
only
it was.
you only see a fraction of it.
Yeah.
I think Walking Dead also feels like we've been talking about. It's this interesting inflection point in Telltale's history, and also that the little vestigial bits of the first person concept that show up throughout, there's a couple spots in episode 1 where you have a first person sequence, and I can't remember if we have them in episode 3. I remember in episode 2 there's the bit where you fight the zombie on the back of the truck, and I don't know, it's just an interesting, it feels like this very crossroads kind of inputs coming from all directions in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah, I think the quick time events fit really well with the feel y'all are going for with this game. Like you said, compared to filling it up with a lot of puzzles. Which I won't lie, the first time I played through this game, I was like, that's so weird. Like, I mean, there's just like hardly any puzzles. And then but you forget it though. I mean, like, just because you're so into not only the story, but just like, you just feel like you're so there because of the camera shots, because of how the characters act. And I think that's why this game is a fan favorite of so many, is because it is like, there's still some of that classic Telltale, but at the same time, it's like new Telltale, it's that new change. And I think it worked really well. All right, well, if you guys are ready, I guess we can start the game. I think there was one more question, just asking how much did y'all get to interact with the voice cast? Did y'all get to, I know you had mentioned, Eric, doing some directing of Christopher Lloyd, but did y'all get to really interact with the voice cast for a game like this very much?
Yeah, I was in the vast majority of the voice sessions, and so in that session would be a sound engineer and a director from Bay Area Sound Design, who Telltale worked with for all their audio, voice and sound effects and music. And then also, ideally, the episode's writer and director. Just to have the writer there who put all the words on paper and had the best memory of like where this all fits together, and the director who is responsible for how it all moves forward. That was always really helpful to have both those people in the sessions, and of course that was all schedule permitting. So yeah, I ended up being able to be in a lot of the voice sessions for this episode, and I think any that I wasn't, Sean Vanneman was definitely in all of them as the writer.
Right. Well, there you go. I guess that's all the questions we have, so we can jump into episode 3 and see how those moments go when they come up.
It's gonna be great. Nothing bad happens. You get on the train, you go to Savannah.
No. Have y'all even played The Walking Dead? It's just a feel good game for sure.
Yeah, to romp all the way to the end.
All right, well, we'll just go ahead and switch over. Thank y'all for webcams on and for doing the Q&A.
Of course.
All right, so here we are in the game portion of the game. We will be playing episode 3 as we talked about, and you guys, of course, are more than welcome to, like I said, mute your mic or talk or dip out if you need to early, that sort of thing. Don't feel pressured by any means to...
God, seeing Duck just hanging his head out that window of that tree is so good. That feels like a Jake call to me. I don't know why. That just makes me feel like that was a Jake call. I could be wrong.
I love Duck so much.
God. Yeah, so, okay, we'll get to it, but like the scenes where you're like hanging out with Duck in this episode, when we get to them, like Jared wrote this incredible like Duck's theme. I guess it's on like the clarinet or the recorder or whatever.
Solo.
God, yeah, oboe, and it's just unbelievably good. And it's like weirdly off tone for the rest of the episode, but we'll get to it. God, when we first heard that go away, we were all like, oh my God, this is so good.
I'm excited to hear it. All right, well, we're in it to win it. We're gonna play this episode, we're gonna beat it, and we won't stop until y'all donate. So don't forget, y'all can donate down below.
Oh no!
Oh no! There it is.
Yeah, do
Let's
it.
try this real.
Jake, I don't remember if this is true or not, but I feel like at some point we talked about each of these like scenes changing once the episode was over. Like when you completed the episode, that like the episode screen would like all be altered in some way. Like a character would disappear or something would change. I don't know if that ever did we ship that? I don't remember. While we wait for the answer, we can start the game. That's fine. We're not wait for the answer.
Right. Well, the
in chat, Jake says he also doesn't think it happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Only
yeah. You'll know. Yeah, you'll know. You'll know if
in our heads.
Yeah, correct.
Let's see. Yeah, Bazik in the chat says, funny story about the Inspector Duck theme. It was super last minute. There really wasn't time to get real fancy, so we just pulled out my clarinet and went to town.
Yeah. I remember that coming in really hot, but it was
my gosh,
so good.
That's so great. Well, yeah, because JDRF was mentioning, Emily was mentioning that this is the episode where Duck, is the detective, and he's trying to crack the big case.
Yes.
Man, there's so much in these episodes.
There's a lot of stuff. Yeah, let's play it so we can.
Yeah, let's
I don't want to like talk about it in theory. I want to like point at stuff.
Right. Yeah. Like let's bring it up as it happens. I agree. All right. Well, don't forget, guys. This is the JDRF stream for Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. All money donated goes to JDRF, and all Humble Bundles purchased, the proceeds also go to JDRF. You can find the links in the chat. And we're about to get started with the game as soon as it's done loading.
Previously on the
I'm excited. I forget. Okay, well, previously on The Walking Dead.
Get the gates open.
This will help me remember.
There you go.
Yeah, that was like I know that Jake was saying that these things were really hard to make, and boy were they, because we had to kind of like predict ahead of time. But they really do remind, like they are super useful to me. Like, oh, that's right. That's what the hell is happening in the story.
Right. That's why that guy's pissed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's trying to cut you out of anything.
Those look like the people who raided my camp.
Calm down, you're paranoid. Fuck you!
Oh.
Did you tell anyone out there who you were, or that you were tied to this place?
That's
Yeah,
right.
this is something that was covered in a previous stream, but yeah, the previously ons were a bit of a technical challenge, but the next time ons were a very special beast because they usually required scenes that did not yet exist.
Yep.
Or or may change in a future rewrite.
Yep.
We shouldn't take
This is a special kind of chaos.
Don't worry, little girl. Bandits got their eye on that.
Please do not look at the previously ons and compare them to the actual shipping game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's just like an out and out lie. Like, and there's a scene where Lee and Clementine are on a train, and he's wearing his like episode 2 outfit, which is not at all what he's wearing in this episode. We just didn't have stuff was still like coming in hot when we were making those, or like the story was still changing, so we had to be like, what do we think is not only important but probably won't change significantly, or like, do we have the train yet? We kind of need the train for this. Oh, we only have like the wall of the train. Okay, I guess Eric, can you find a way to shoot this so it looks like a full train?
Or even better, can you shoot this wall of the train so it looks like something that's not the train?
Yes, yeah.
That's the true trick.
All right, we are back in action, which is basically how each episode starts.
I love that the Macon Herald printed a newspaper that was like, everyone's gone. Like,
I don't know who's reading this.
Newspaper titles as like information that is just super important to have. I always love that stuff in like movies and stuff.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Actually goes smoothly.
It's very effective and only a little bit unrealistic.
Yeah.
Right.
God, I remember we were talking about the episode 3 was the episode where you go back to the pharmacy after it had been like wrecked, and I can't remember who pitched it. It might have been Chuck or someone. I'm not sure, but like he was like, what if it like something smashed into it? Like, what if it was a plane that like landed, like crashed through the window? And we're like, that's nuts. That's ridiculous. And then somebody was like, well, what about a helicopter? And everyone's like, yeah, we could do that. Like, it was just like, it was it's insane that of all the places this helicopter could have crashed, it was the perfect. Like, if you had stayed there, you would have died. But somehow it's like, yeah, sure. And then you fight like, it's wild that that we ever got that, like got approval to smash up the pharmacy with a helicopter.
Motel's run its course, and it's not safe.
Well, if that's what you think, you should probably fucking speak up. Lily's
Yeah, it does feel really good to come back here though, and
crazy,
and just see how how much has changed in the whatever this is, like
Okay, just like
probably
last time.
3 months in
I
game
think it's like
time.
3 or 4 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever supplies are left.
You know, it's so funny. And this is totally my fault, but I didn't even realize the last time I played this game that this is the same pharmacy because it is so different.
Yeah.
Because the helicopter came crashing in, and I picked it up near the end of it when we were like raiding the place, and I'm like, oh wait, this is like the same pharmacy,
Yeah,
but
it's a
it
family's
took
pharmacy.
right, and of course it says Everett's prescriptions. Like, I mean, it's like literally spelled out, but I was a little stressed out at the time. I was like, just got off of episode 2. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll just jump right into episode 3.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Coming up with like things that block the player's path
Find another way out.
is one of the great stressors of these types of games, because it just eventually starts to feel real fake. Like it's like, oh, the ladder's busted. Huh? Okay, well, could I come up with a confusing puzzle, some convoluted way to like get over this obstacle? So like the idea that Kenny gets over it first and then it breaks on you, or like he breaks it going up, I think was a good move. But yeah, like we had to like, if you see there's like rubble under the truck, because like why didn't you just scoot under the truck? Well, what if it was filled with rubble and you couldn't go under there? Like we had to like come up with problems to then like, that's puzzle design. But like it's interesting to see how far, and players don't really notice it, but like in the room you have to come up with like, why can't the player do this very simple version of the task because we want a puzzle to go here.
Yeah.
Or some activity to go here. We have to sort of like convolute the whole situation to a point that requires this like weird hit like winch puzzle. It's an interesting problem to solve.
And that's what you were talking about before, where that the tone of the game kind of boxes you in a way that is not the case in a Monkey Island or a Sam and Max game, where you can come up with something completely off the wall and totally get away with it.
Yeah, like if this was a Sam & Max game, you would just leave the truck, like, the rubble under the truck. You take the rubble out and then like have a look at there and have Sam or Max say something really snarky about like not going under there for some jokey reason, and that would be the way you just like hand wave it. Like Max will make a joke about demons coming in, like grabbing him if he goes under the truck, and you're like, that's it, that's the solve. But like this has to be like realistic,
I'm scared of the dark, Sam. It's like, all right, little buddy, we'll go around. Like,
right? Yeah.
No, that's great. I never understood as a kid. I never understood why there were so many games growing up that had invisible walls instead of, putting rubble under the truck. Instead of blocking off that alleyway with an overturned car.
Right.
Like I'd much rather have a scene that, in essence, is boxed in but doesn't look like it, compared to a scene that looks like it's like wide open, but it turns out you're just as equally stuck there,
Yeah, and it's also just like the tone of the world, right? Like the Walking Dead world is a world where people put themselves in extremely dangerous situations for like high risk for even like low reward, because they have no choice but to do that or die. And so it like the classic adventure game problem, like why didn't you just do X, you stupid idiot character, is exacerbated when you make a game like this. But anyway, this scene's really good. I should stop talking.
I love / hate this scene. Because last time I actually
It's a girl. She's gonna get us
last time
killed.
I let her be bait, and I don't know what to do this time. Oh well. Right.
I really like this, the addition of this character, just as a. I don't remember if we actually talked about this as a literal like alternate reality, but kind of the idea of like what state would Clementine be in if Lee hadn't found her. And I think that this character is supposed to be one possible answer to that question, of just where without protection, without support, what happens to you in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it came in later, like this scenario where you go back to the pharmacy for like supplies was definitely in the story, but then it was just lacking like tension or lacking like a timer. And I think that was one of the reasons we're like, well, what else can we do here that like ratchets up the like why don't you just take all day and grab as much stuff as you want?
Right.
Right.
It just tonally just didn't feel where we wanted it to be. So I think that like in the writer's room we were just trying to figure out what, I can't remember whose idea it was. It might have been Jake or Sean, but like it was just trying to figure out what we can do to make this scene more like how can we crank up the Walking Deadness to 11. You know?
Yeah, I think it was a good, because it wasn't just like, it wasn't about saving her because she's been bit. So obviously like she's as good as gone. It's about, oh, well, do I spare her the horrors of being eaten alive, or do I let her die this painful death so we could get some more supplies?
Here's some first-person shots, Eric.
Yeah, there they are. Okay. Answer my question right away.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember like designing this scene and just being like, I think it would feel really cool to just see a bunch of dots on screen and just like you have a timer at the bottom, which is the bar, and just being like, how many clicks can you click in the timer that you have, and like all of the moves, like the camera like left right to like jump between the shelving is like really snappy and really quick, and it's just it's kind of a button mash almost, but you're really just searching for as much stuff as you can find. And I remember like really working on like making that feel as good as possible with the short guys, making sure like it just felt really snappy and really cool.
Right.
Especially after we spent all this time telling you how urgent it is and
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
how little time you have to get out of there.
That like scene where he's running and just like the door bursts open at that perfect moment, I think was definitely one of those like we had just been in the room and like we just couldn't figure out a better solve for like what puts him under the door. And it's just like, what if zombies would burst in?
Zombies.
Like, really? Right. At that perfect moment, like yeah. I mean, you're invading the space because of the girl screams and all the stuff that's been going on. So like maybe it's fine.
Hey, it works.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one. It works. Also of note, the gun that Lee is carrying has the like brass plate from the St. John's Dare. I think we were trying to find other things to connect to the other episodes.
Yes.
So that's the like named gun. He's like, this is my gunshot, whatever he calls it, and that's that gun.
Forgot about that.
Someone pointed that out to me, and I was blown away. I was like, oh wow.
Also, I love that. I feel like this is a Chuck idea, but like, you keep trying to brain zombies, and like it's worked a lot, and then you find the zombie with a helmet on, and your instinct is to hit him in the head, and it just doesn't work. It's such a good like, what's a zombie but like slightly harder? It was a really good twist. A guy with a helmet on.
Yes. I've weirdly enough, unrelated to this game, I've been playing a lot of Plants vs. Zombies. If y'all have ever played that game.
Sure.
And so, plenty of zombies in that game with bucket helmets on. So I've been dealing with a lot of that nonsense.
This didn't fool you for a moment.
Oh,
yeah. You're prepared for Walking Dead season or episode 3.
Yeah, I was like, all I need is a couple of peas, some sunflowers, I'll be good to go.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like, the team did such a great job making this scene. Like, we've been at the Motor Lodge for so long, but, like, changing the time of day and changing the lighting, like, Eric, your team just, like, it felt new and fresh every time.
That's neat.
Yes.
Like, it just felt rad every time you came here.
Yeah, a lot of that was the art team.
Yeah.
Art direction and environment modeling.
Looks like we got
It worked really well because it's similar enough that it's home base. You know, at this point we've spent like a good chunk of the game here, but we get to see into the rooms, we get to see different angles. Like even JDRF, Emily mentioning the Detective Duck thing, I could have sworn that was in the last episode just because that was like the first scene I got to see like Clementine and Duck, you know, hanging out at the motor inn. But like obviously like there's more of the motor inn to see. This worked real well.
Yeah, I think also like Lily's response to like how well you did is based on like how many clicks you actually did. Like it does track. Like if you basically just like duff around and don't pick anything up, should be like, what the hell, man? Like you got us a candy bar. This sucks.
Get us
I was
killed.
like trying to find places where like it wasn't a dialogue branch, but like the game would continue to react to what you were doing all the time to reinforce that the game's always watching, but it wasn't a dialogue thing. It was definitely Like, we went back through multiple places. Like, is there places we can add that stuff?
I'm sorry. Somebody needs to make
Right.
executive decisions for the group, though. And I don't think you're
I think I mean, I like I really do like those moments where like you say something, do something that you don't even think is a choice, but the game's like, oh no, this is just as much a choice as the dialogue options.
How is
Like,
this
you know,
not been working? We have everything we need.
Because of me, Lily. We got plenty of food from that station wagon.
Yeah, no thanks to you. You didn't even want to take
Yeah,
it.
seeing
Where the
seeing
hell
the
would we
like
be
over the
now?
3 episodes,
We
the
can't just keep our
slow
fingers crossed for
schism
more
that happens in the
station
group
Everything that
between
happens to
Kenny
us
and
is
Lily
another
was definitely one of those
excuse
things
for
that
crap about leaving.
was like on the list early on for the season. Like, there is
Peace
like
of not
interpersonal
hearing
drama
it.
obviously is
Do you know
literally the
how
first
we
bullet
got
point
these
on the list in The
supplies?
Walking Dead.
Your
Like,
pal and I
oeuvre.
got lucky. We let a girl get eaten
But
up.
like, knowing that it's not Lee, like
Some
Lee
girl
is
came
just
screaming
kind
out
of
of an
a
alley.
part
She
of
had
this
dick
team, and it's
hanging
not
all
like
over
he's
her.
the leader
She gave
and
us enough time
there's
to get
another person
everything we
pissed off
could
at
out of
him,
the
and he just
drugstore.
gets a voice like everyone
Just
else
let her
gets a
suffer.
vote. But like, there are these 2 other really strong personalities that are kind of asking you to pick a side. Was a really, really strong choice, I think, by Sean and Jake, and
He's
obviously a
right.
lot of folks on
We've
the
been putting
team,
our lives on the line
to
doing
sort of
these
put
runs
you,
into
the
the
player,
city.
in a really
You
difficult
wouldn't
position
believe
where
the
you don't
shit
have
we
the
see.
power. You
We
can kind of
all appreciate it,
pick a
Captain.
side and tell folks what you
Making
think
it
is
as
right, but no
people
matter
might
what you
savor.
say, you're going to piss
It's not a
somebody off,
town.
and that felt
It's
really
full of
very like
walkers. And the
primo
people who
Walking
were
Dead.
left are dying and
Definitely.
wandering out onto the streets.
I think it
It's
also,
hell on earth.
just in
And
practical
it's coming
terms,
this
gives you a
way.
reason why
It's not going to be easier
you
out on the road.
have a limited number of choices. Like,
What
Yeah.
I know?
you
I know you're not above
you can't just
murder. I know
leave
somebody's been
as much as it
stealing
might feel like the right idea.
That's right.
Yeah.
Screw these
Stealing.
people,
And
I'm
I
out of
know
here.
the list of people I can trust
That's
here
it. Yeah, trying to make sure that
every
like,
day.
why doesn't
Now
Lee get in the
everybody get
like the motorhome and just drive off to like New York and leave all these crazy people behind?
Right.
Was not a valid choice. We had to. That was really tough. So we had to like
Yeah.
ride the line of like how like outlandish can we get these characters before it's like, well, okay, I'm actually better off without these people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Clementine is an
All I
obvious
know is, whenever
uh,
this shit happens, I'm the fucking bad guy.
Yeah.
I'd like
helps
to thank you for
answer that
once.
question,
For
and
once.
the fact that Lee is not really the leader of the group, at least at this point.
right.
Clever ways in the story to answer that question.
Yeah, I think that like making sure that Lee is like that was one of those things that I really appreciated about the choices where like Lee is a human being with decisions that he is willing to make. Like Lee's never going to go blow up a hospital because like you don't have to make that option and build it into the game because Lee would just never do something that horrible.
Mhm.
Right? So like we only had to give you a couple of choices because in Lee the character, his mind, he's only going to do a few different things. Like he's never going to do the insane, wacky like edge case thing that you somehow have to build because you know players are always going to poke the edges of the simulation to see what they can get away with. That's just how players, that's how human beings are.
Of course.
But yeah, like really focusing on like Lee is not a cipher for the player, and you are not supposed to believe that you are inhabiting this world. You are inhabiting Lee, who is a character who has wants and motivations that like Eric said, it really reins in what you have to design, which was really, really smart.
Oh, that's really something.
I'll make one for you too.
Yeah, because you know, certain games work good with a blank slate, but for a game with this many dialogue branches, you know, it would be.
Going.
I mean, you have to have some way to rein it in.
Maybe if I knew
Yeah.
So it works really well
Good thing,
to
I'll talk to
for
you
it to be almost like like each playthrough's like oh well, what if I had said this instead? But it's still
Right.
within that same line of thought, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, like the choices
Yeah.
in and of themselves were not the point, right? Like we're not trying to make a game where you can just do anything. Like that wasn't the point of the game. We were trying to tell a very specific story.
sorry.
So, yeah, like you
don't
said.
have to
Right.
apologize.
Did you come in here to give me help?
Poor
or to
Lily.
coddle me?
Totally changing gears here, but I've noticed in some shots that we have Lee with his gun tucked into the back of his pants,
What you
which
said about stolen
which I remember
supplies.
being a.
Do you know what's going on?
I have no idea whose idea it was first. I'm gonna
Things
guess
are
and say
missing,
probably Jake
and I could
because
use
that
your
seems like
help.
a
There's a traitor.
safe bet.
Somebody
But
one of
All the
there's
seasons were
definitely
Jake's.
he or she or they had
just
definitely a
assume
push to
you
get.
can't remember.
yeah,
You haven't
it's the
really
safest
been
guess.
Don't
saying-
start in on that.
You've been
But yeah,
to
it was
a
definitely a
trial,
push to
and you're not
get the
taking
character
care of
model
yourself.
changed to accommodate the
That's
gun,
off, that's the good
and
stuff.
it also
Antibiotics,
must
I'll
switch
see
if he pulls it out,
anything
where
with
he
opium
then
in
does
it.
not have it tucked into his
I see
pants.
the count, and it's fine.
That's right.
It,
Yeah, I
it might have
remember,
been. We were probably also
That
trying to
one's getting
answer
messed with.
just the practical question of where does Lee
Fucking
keep his
mess
gun.
right now, but
That's
I'm
it,
not
yeah.
Stupid.
And
know what happens if I start
and so we
hunt.
had an
So
answer
you want
actually.
me to
Like
start?
again, like Sam and Max, he just pulls it out of the adventure hole, like
Right,
the black
right.
hole that exists behind his back. Like
What's
Guybrush
the
can
deal?
just like throw things off camera, and now they're in his pockets. But again,
Yeah.
with him being grounded and
I
realistic,
found
that was
this
definitely a
tossed
thing
into
that
the
came up a
garbage.
bunch.
Right.
We don't toss out
It always
equipment,
pleases me to
we
see that
fix it.
gun
Yeah.
tucked
Only
in
try to get rid
back
of
of
a
his pants.
flashlight if you're using it when you shouldn't.
Okay, I'll poke around a little bit.
Yeah, I think it works really well. Like you were saying, I never thought about the inventory that way, but you're never really holding anything too jarring. Like,
Jesus, Doc.
I'm sorry.
if you when you pick up that pillow in the parking lot, you're still holding onto that pillow,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can I
It's
help?
not a like that
What did I
object
just say?
doesn't just go
None of this,
away
Detective.
until you
I
need
actually
it.
did grease
Or if it's
your
the
wall.
multi-tool pliers, I mean, you can put that in your pocket. Like
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
explained for sure.
God, your ward is such a good.
I love
Sean
it.
really wrote the hell out of the scene.
Good old Doug.
This
You're right.
like walking out of the house where you've had this like intense discussion with Lily about like there's a traitor doing like weird sneaky stuff, and you need to figure out what's going on, and then you come outside and this little kid's like a mystery. The tone shift there is unbelievable and very good. Like the rest of this episode is so dark. I think that like injecting some levity into this part was super smart. And also I remember where this came from, which was like we really, really want to give you some time with all the characters, and Duck especially, given the events of this episode.
Mhm.
So like we really haven't interacted with him much. He's kind of been attached at the hip to Katya and to Kenny. So really just trying to give you some time where you can like get to know him as a person, as like an actual character, and not like half a character, was super, super important given all the emotional beats we wanted to land later in
Got
the
word and
episode.
tossed it.
What's with
And
the
then
dirty
and then we just
green?
wrote
Well,
the hell
I
out
think
of
a
it,
lot
so
of
it ended up
the-
being great anyway.
Okay then.
I think a lot of the interactions we had with him earlier, he came off pretty
That's
annoying,
it, yeah.
or caused a lot of problems that you had to deal with, like in episode 1 at the
Yes.
farm.
Oh, yeah.
So give me. Well, maybe he's still annoying that you at least.
This is your last
appreciate
chance
it
to
more as
really
just a
like
weird
him.
kid.
Yeah, like really get on board
Yeah.
with Duck. We cranked it up, right? Like it's really cheesy, but like we really want everyone just like this is your opportunity to get on board with Duck.
Is this manipulative? Who can say?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could say the same about like Mark entering episode 2, like out of nowhere as far as the player is concerned, but like as far as Lee's concerned, it's like, yeah, he's been with us for a while. He's a good guy,
Right.
I'm already sharing, my opinions on things with him, and then he's supper at the end of the episode. At least with Duck, you've had chances before to really get to interact with him, but now like you're really it's all or nothing.
Yeah, totally.
Good old Doug.
Do you know anything about this flashlight?
Again, I'm glad we're on a Doug playthrough.
I know you know
Oh, yeah.
anything about this flashlight.
The first time I played this game, I saved Carly.
Found it in the dumpster.
And I was told by the chat previously that I was incorrect in that choice. So we saved Doug. I have nothing against Doug, but at the time when I was playing the episode, Carly was the one with the gun, and Doug was the guy who like hacked the universal remote. So like at the time I was like, well, obviously if I save Carly, she'll save Doug. And I had like my reasoning, but I should have thought back to Sean and Duck and how well that went, trying to save one over the other.
No, it's but your logic is sensible.
Yeah. So I had a method to my madness, but I think
a lot of people did.
I'm really Doug just came out of nowhere.
God, that like sneaky, stealthy like smear swap, very good. Where he like puts his finger on it and begins his hand moving down, and the camera cuts away, and we cut back.
Clever
Extremely good.
Yeah.
Okay, back to investigating.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, if you save Doug, you get the like early alarm system in episode 2 that the brothers trip over. Like you actually see them walking down the road, and the bells are like jingling, and there's like an animation of like Andy St. John like hopping as he's like got his foot tangled in like the fishing line that Doug stretched across the road, and like we really tried our best to make sure that you feel like you got like some value out of your Doug playthrough.
Right. Well, that was interesting because, like, yeah, I didn't realize that Doug was like, would be kind of technical like that. So, like, little things like the alarm system and like the laser pointer at the at the ranch.
Right.
Him trying to do Morse code to get Lee's attention.
Yeah.
It was great for his character for sure.
Guns now, and I don't like it.
JDRF asked Eric and Harrison, at what point was it decided that whoever you saved, Doug or Carly, would also die? Was that always the plan, or did you decide partway through development when you realized how much extra work it would be to have that branch?
I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure it was always the plan. I think that's what I was told early, that whoever you save in episode 1 would last until episode 3 because, as you said, like it is really expensive. And I think that we could like afford very few like cross episode branches that like a character is a big one, like the biggest one really almost. So I think that it was one of those like we can only really do this for part of the season was I think what I learned early on. So we were gonna like hack some early or mid season, but I could be wrong. I think that's what we did. And then we did a bunch of other like. Eventually, we started doing a bunch of other crazy branching, and eventually, we probably could have pushed it further given where we ended the game. But I think early on, when they were trying to scope the game before I joined the team, that was the like compromise. I feel like was the case.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that was always the decision from the beginning because I think if we.
I'll talk to you later.
What am I trying to say? Like, if we plan to keep those characters later, then like the role that new characters introduced later on fulfill could have been something that Dougley, as they're called in their quantum state,
quantum Dougley, yeah,
could have fulfilled. So the fact that we never had to scramble to add other characters to fill what they would have done makes me think that we always planned for that to go down the way it did.
Schrodinger's cat, basically, of like
yes.
perpetually like one or the other.
Really?
Totally. I was combing the scene for clues.
Yeah,
I was combing the scene for clues. Thank you, Duck. Oh, I love it.
Wait. Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Here it is.
Ah.
I think this was Nick Mastriani's idea. I'm almost positive. We were doing like a read through, and we were like, he was like, you've got to be able to high five him at some point. We're like, yeah, absolutely, you will.
And then it has to be on a click. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
His superhero pose is so good.
That's probably one of the best.
Oh my gosh, he's so proud of himself.
Yep.
Have you found anything else?
Just the chalk.
And I liked Duck from the beginning. I mean, obviously, like he's a little kid. He's hyper. And I even made jokes about like we call him Duck because he won't stop quacking. Like et cetera. But like, I mean, even from the beginning, I was like, oh, well, he's a fun kid. He's not like, he's a hyper little boy, but like, no more so than any other little boy that like, I have in my own life, like my nephew or something. So,
right.
I was like, oh, well, I mean, Duck's just being Duck.
Okay.
I also think that there was, I believe, and I'm kind of speaking for Jake and Sean here, but I believe that like Duck, like the character of Duck was pretty important to the cast because we really wanted to see a kid who like didn't really get that the apocalypse was happening. Like he was just kind of like rubber, like everything was bounced off him, and like because there's so many characters that are just bummed out, you know what I mean? That like I feel like Duck was there to balance it out, where he's just kind of like living his life and he's not really noticing that anything's really bad. And I think that was actually really important for the cast.
I think it also tells you that this is a safe group for Clementine to be a part of.
It's true,
yeah. Also in the chat, chat we have Dennis and Randy and Dan.
Hey, welcome.
Oh man,
big old Ian.
Oh, and we found the
You haven't come up with
the
anything,
lunch
have
baggie
you?
full of
This.
supplies.
It's got a bunch of meds in it. It was in a grate on the outside wall, and there's a sign on the other one.
Holy
Yeah, I think this is one of those
That's
scenes
getting
where like
interesting.
there's a lot of suspicion
Okay,
between like
we line everybody
like
up.
characters' ulterior motives,
Everybody.
and having like a
Somebody is
character tell you like,
filming
hey, I'm
this.
really suspicious of
Stealing
another
from that
character
supply
after
is
this
the
big
same as
fight
slipping into
with
your room
somebody.
at night and cutting
I think you
your
could
throat
easily
twice.
just be like, well, you're being
You
paranoid.
die.
But then you actually find
What is the
actual
difference?
evidence of
What if
actual
Clementine gets
conspiracy,
sick and we don't have
uh,
what we need?
which is super interesting. And I don't know, I think that like
What the hell?
it not being a red herring and it actually being like, no, you're not, you're right. Like, something weird and untoward is happening was a really cool idea.
Got our people out there.
Yes.
We ain't fucking around.
Crap.
What do we do?
Yeah, especially with Lily being the one that's driving the conspiracy, who
Yeah.
The hell are
is
you
in the
doing?
Stole 'em.
What?
And she's already a
most
high-strung
emotionally
character.
damaged space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
You made the biggest
Yeah, Lily had definitely the short hand of the deck as far as
Enough of this bullshit.
Oh yeah.
a lot's working against her.
The bandits here, like
Take it easy.
I because like we were working on this episode and also episode 2 is like being kind of finished, and so we actually took I think a bunch of these bandits and stuck them in episode 2,
Why?
like in the last or in the next time on. Like I remember like it getting the benefit of these guys existing for episode 3 because then we could put them in episode 2, and then you know that it's the same
What will it
group
take to
from
reach a deal?
that were like shooting arrows and stuff at you from episode 2 when you're out with Mark mending the fence.
Done.
That feels right to me. I don't know why I'm saying that. It feels like it's true. Also, hard ass is a very good shirt he's wearing. Didn't somebody make that shirt? I'm pretty sure we had a Halloween contest and somebody dressed up as that specific
Oh.
bandit with the the hood over his head. And like, man, also might have been
Shot
Mustard.
dog. Yeah. Yeah, I was also going to say, I think that was a Nick Mastriani costume,
God damn it.
if anyone.
Oh, it was Jake. Good.
Oh,
Yes.
that was Jake. Oh, sorry, Jake. Stole your valor.
My costume photo was him and T-Pose.
Oh, it was in T-pose. Oh my god, so good.
God.
So this whole sequence, I like while getting ready for the stream, I went back in my old Google Docs folder, and I actually have the like breakdown of each phase of this fight and where each character
Oh, wow.
is, because that's just I think that's what we used back then, and like where the bad guys come from, and the fact that you have to like swap between the two, and like they'll go to certain positions, like they'll slowly get closer and closer, and you have to swap between the left and right side of the van. I remember that like we tried to pitch. I remember pitching this, and the first instinct was like, we're gonna have a shootout in the like because we could only show so many characters on screen. I'm sure you know that better than anybody.
Yeah.
But we have to be like, no, we're not gonna they're only gonna be a couple of them. They're gonna be kind of hiding. We'll make like we'll do the pops of light from like the woods where you we'll have like 2D cutouts of them or whatever we did to kind of like get away with it.
Totally.
And like it seems a lot bigger than it is. Don't worry. But it was definitely like getting that approved was definitely like a really having to sell the vision of what this thing is.
Right.
I remember being a lot of work to get the actual like aiming of the gun feeling good. Also, the actual like shooting gallery aspect of it.
Yeah. I think we did this again in episode 4, where they're coming up the stairs, and we kind of reused this moment. But I think this is like the foundational time that we're like, all right, can we do a first-person shooter sequence in this?
Oh crap. Yeah, it works really well.
Oh man. Yeah, so like the bandits, i.e. the human enemies, break down your walls, and that allows the gunfire
And all the gunfire, yeah.
And like you can kill hordes of zombies and not feel bad about it, but you know, killing a couple of bandits doesn't feel great after a while.
Thank you, Dan.
Good animation there. But yeah, so like it just being like, well, this place is completely untenable. It's not like we killed the bandits, we can put the walls back. Like we just need to go now,
Right.
and like really make sure that felt like the right decision to like leave this place of safety, because it was like untenable forever and ever. Was a big deal.
Calm down. We need to figure out why this happened.
Nobody died. We're okay, right? Katya, you're okay?
We just lost everything.
God, this Lily just goes absolutely off
I'm
the
fine.
rails.
Somebody in here caused this.
Settle down back there. The
This
bandits
whole
have been our
scene
number
with
for weeks.
Lily.
This is different. Somebody was
Yeah, I mean, she like goes to 10 in the second scene of this episode and just stays there.
So they attacked.
someone's killing us. It's like, oh, granted, again, she has a
I mean, she's
lot
not wrong.
working against her. Yeah, and she's
She's not wrong.
in her own way. She's doing it for the benefit of the group. You know, obviously, she's paranoid because she has to be, because something is actually wrong, and she's the only one that notices it for a while.
She has a very specific managerial style.
Yeah, and I think I haven't been paying attention to all the details because we've been talking, but I think to this point she hasn't been wrong about anything yet. Like she's, like you said, she's up at 10, but
yeah,
so far she's been right.
So you're saying you did it?
Nobody did anything.
See, in my playthrough, when Carly was here in the RV, I wasn't sure if it was like Ben or Carly, you know, who did it, and I was like, oh crap, I don't think Carly would have done it, but like, I don't know. I don't think Ben would have done it. I don't know. Everyone's so innocent.
Then what do we not forgive? Honestly, tell me. Kenny can
I think this is. I remember this this sequence of like we had to plan out the logic sequence of like who did it and why they did it and like what the plan was, and I remember it. We actually went back and re-strengthened. This is what I was talking about earlier before we started playing. Re-strengthened the connection between this episode and episode 2, where destroying the dairy meant that the bandits would come and retaliate on our group because now they're not getting food and supplies from the St. John Dairy.
Right. So they're more desperate now.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's the same group of bandits. They're shooting arrows, which is why there's arrows stuck in the wall. Like I think we tried to like pump that up as much as we could.
Yes.
Which I also think went back into the next time on where Jolene, the like Save Lots lady, is saying like she says a line like the very end that's like, as long as they keep getting through from there, you're going to be fine. Which I think came in after we decided that the bandits from episode 2 were the ones attacking in episode 3, to really make it feel like, at least if you're paying attention, that like you could follow the events between the episodes and say, oh, I get it. Like the bandits are here because of what we did. We took down the dairy,
right?
And now we have to pay the consequences.
Yeah, definitely. No good deed goes unpunished. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's for every action, you know, you're gonna have something's gonna happen, and it's not always great.
Just tell us you did it.
No.
I think you probably did it. I'm not doing this.
Okay over there? I'm not
I hate being on the fence, but usually it's like it's between like, you know, one yelling person and the other, or it's between killing a person or not. It's like, oh.
I mean, we definitely tried to like put the like Sitter Lee personality on the options as much as we could, which just pissed both sides off. Like it actually was worse if you tried to like be the mediator. You're like, no, calm down, everything's gonna be fine. It just pissed off both parties, which is great.
More medicine. Anything.
Stop panicking. Seriously, Ben. You need to
Calm down, Ben.
Take a breath.
Do we need any more evidence than this?
Evidence or not, this isn't any way to treat one of us.
I've heard enough out of you, okay, Doug? Kenny,
If you hurt my baby boy Doug, I'm gonna be pissed.
Ben, you haven't
He's fine. He's gonna be
fine.
Oh, yeah.
to tell me it was you.
No, I only Carly, something happened to her, but Doug's
Never trusted you.
Doug's okay. He's in the clear.
I can't believe
Eric, do you remember who shot this sequence? Was it you or was it someone
I
else?
think this was Sean Ainsworth.
Tell me.
Because it's extremely good. Like this whole sequence up till they get back on the RV is just so like the shot choices, and the blinking red light, just like illuminating everyone. God, it's so good.
It's such a classic. Oh, jeez. So wait. Oh crap. So she was gonna shoot Ben, but she shot Doug instead.
I think it's slightly different. It's slightly different if it's
with Carly. She straight up is like shooting at Carly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's wow. Because I was like, wait, she doesn't like hate Doug like she hated Carly. So like, how is it gonna come about that Doug's the one to take the fall? But of course, it's him being selfless.
I love that, like, if you see the shot right before that, like the wide shot, you can actually see Lily, like, reaching behind her back to pull her gun out, like, really quickly as the shot changes. It's, like, really fucking subtle. Really, sorry, effing subtle. But it's just one of those like little details that the cinematographer like put in. It feels really really good.
You're a murderer, Lily.
It's really good.
We can't have you with us.
I'm a murderer? You've had Lee with you this whole time.
Oh crap.
What are you talking about?
He didn't tell you. He killed someone before all of this. He was a convicted murderer.
Is that true, Lee?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Fucking hell. Were you
God,
ever
yeah,
gonna
her
get
just like
around to
burning the
telling
bridge
me
on her
that?
way out.
You got a little
Right.
girl with you.
You suckers can leave me, but I'm not gonna leave y'all
Get in, Lee.
peacefully.
Let's go, you guys.
I don't have anything.
I think if you
I can't remember. I think you can tell them ahead of time, can't you? Like, you have the option to go to Kenny and Katya and be like, listen, I
Yeah.
need to tell you the truth. And then when she brings it up here, it just falls flat, right?
I think so. I think that's in this episode.
I must have missed that.
I think you can only do it if you've... Yeah, that's right. You can only do it if Kenny and you are, like, best bros at the beginning of this episode. So if you, like...
Since I was on the
at the
middle
beginning
of
of
the
this
fence.
episode, when you're walking to the pharmacy, he'll mention all the things, like, if you saved Duck, if you, like, backed him in the meat locker, if you did, like, there's certain, like, big and small decisions that come out to, like, I think 5 total choices that can mean he's, like, really, really hates you, kind of in the middle, or really, really loves you.
On your Lily kind of spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think you can only give him you can only admit to him if you're like bros with him and you're like, yo, I need to tell you something.
That sounds
yeah,
right.
so it's one of those like compound choices where you just don't even know you've missed something.
Right.
Is Duck feeling
Ah,
all right?
jeez. Duck is not doing good.
Happened during the
You know, he's
raid.
great. Everything's fine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What's the plan? Never had a bite victim in the group before.
And so
Yeah, watching Kenny, like, his reaction to this, I think is one of the more, like, I mean, obviously through season 2, you know, you see his personality really crank to a certain level, but like in this episode and then for the rest of the season, just watching him sort of descend because of this scene and this moment,
Yes.
and just like just seeing it define who he is as a person for like the foreseeable future is like really, really, really interesting.
Oh yeah. Well, because I mean, his family is his. I mean, that's his driving character point. You know, I mean, like he.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more important to him than his family. So for him to have to go through this and go through, you know, other things in this episode, it's I can't. I mean, like he. I mean, like even before this episode ends, he's almost a completely different person. Like there's a moment on the train where like I was genuinely like kind of scared. I was like, oh, like wow.
Oh, it's like that fight scene
Yeah.
in the train that Marat animated, and it looks, yeah, I remember that. Like you have this weird like multiple sequence fight scene where you can like shove them up against stuff. Like, wow, yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, and yeah, it's
a
an
game in this
option
game.
to like
Yeah.
go after him, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is Kenny. He's been my best buddy since episode 1. You know, like
I think he can leave you with a shiner too, can't you? Like, I think he can like
Yeah.
punch you in the face and like just leave a big welt on your face for like the rest of the episode.
oh my gosh.
I think that's true, yeah.
Oh,
This one time, these boys from the other side of town were hassling him.
I love this conversation.
He was on
Yeah,
his
it's
way
really,
back
really
Just
good.
the
when a truck throwing things at him. Called him
quiet
names
moment to
and stuff
check in
like
with
that.
Clementine.
yeah.
This tough son of a
Oh,
gun
and this story.
pulls up after
Yeah.
him, he catches him, he
It's so
pulls
good.
his bike up alongside the truck and jumps into the back and starts beating on him.
Talking about his brother.
Teaches all three
Yeah.
of them
Yeah, yeah. The kind of thing that
to
like
see it
doesn't
just
strictly
stands
speaking
up,
drive the plot
jump
forward,
out,
but just
zooms
fleshes
up
out
and
characters,
the
and
branch hits him square in the face.
it's really nice to
Oh yeah.
have time for that in a story like this.
Yeah.
You need those moments, the quiet moments of taking you out of
Through this.
everything that's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Also, just like continuing to deepen their bond, like between Clementine and Lee, and just sort of showing them growing closer and like,
Benang.
her reacting to a story. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's the Benang. Someone was asking the other day, like, "Where's the Benang?" Like, it's in
I think
it's in
Emily
the-
asked about the Benang.
Yeah, it's there.
Oh crap. Forgot about this. Oh no. Stop it. I hate it.
Got something up ahead.
God, it's so good. And then it's daytime. Ah,
Yep.
so
yep,
good,
yep.
so good.
Been there, done
I
that.
love that.
Yeah.
Woke up completely different day. You weren't being eaten by your basically adoptive zombie daughter.
Yeah, they'll cut to the like dripping faucet, and it's just like weirdly quiet. It's man, it's such a good transition to
Yes.
to like a quote unquote dream sequence. God, and like the bloody smear on the front of the car also from hitting the zombies are good.
Also, in that pull-up shot where you see the reflection of the train in the
Oh
windshield.
gosh, yeah,
Just
you're
little-
right.
Yes. I remember getting to the
all those little
train,
things.
and it was such a powerful moment of like, yes,
Yeah.
the ultimate
Now we're getting
zombie
somewhere.
fighting, like,
Right? What could go wrong?
oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in the like opening like loading screen shot. And you're like, oh man, I'm gonna get to ride a train. So this whole time you're like, where's the train? Come on, I know there's a train coming. Hurry up.
Safe area.
Yeah, and Brian Gillies, the artist, just absolutely nailed it. It's like accurate. Like it's a very specific model of train. Like you'd be able to tell you, like it's such and such model built in 1975, and like
Right.
yeah, he built an entire interior engine like working.
Why
Like
don't you and I go
he
look
just
around?
absolutely obliterated this
Yeah,
thing. It looks
everyone
so
else
good.
relax. Clem, stay close to Kenny and Kat, okay?
Lee, if you come across anything
It helps to
drink,
have a,
there's dining car or something.
I mean,
I think that's
you're obviously
what
going
it
off
is.
of the comics, you're going off of this world that was already built, but
What,
it's
you think
still
there might be something dangerous
realistic
inside the
humans in a
abandoned
realistic,
world?
I mean, not a realistic world, but realistic humans in an unrealistic world, and there's still, it's still Georgia. You're still gonna have the train on the train
Mhm.
tracks, you're still gonna have, the little town with the little pharmacy and all that.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things where you really have to find like what can you use that is interesting and new
Happy you
environment
stayed with us
wise,
all this
and
time?
like
Yeah.
what is surprising and different
with you
in this
guys, we're
episode.
dead.
Like this is like the
Nobody died out there in
tentpole
the woods.
thing, right? Like
Just
there's the
like
dairy in
us.
episode 2.
You think
There's
this is
the
better?
pharmacy in
Yeah,
episode
of
1.
course.
Like what is the thing that people will like talk about in this episode, and
Was it
remember
you?
like specifically?
Not this
And I think
again.
that a
Was it?
crazy a
No.
crazy
Okay.
train that you can ride. Like it's nuts that you can actually get this thing to work. Honestly, like in a real world, there's no way just random
Left her?
like
I've never
goobers
seen
in a
anything.
minivan would be able to turn on a train. But
Seen a bunch of
Right.
it's good drama. So
But
hey,
sure.
Not like that.
Yeah, I don't see a single person pull out their smartphone and like Google
right?
how to start a train.
Yeah, yeah. It's so weird, right? It's also one of those times where we tried to vary up. And this is one of the things that the game designer in an episode will work on. Is we're trying to vary up the gameplay. So if you look back on all the stuff we've done so far, you have this long sequence where you're not controlling Lee. You're just kind of answering dialogue, and you're not using the other half of their controller effectively.
I hope so.
So we try to say, okay, this is like a exploratory space, and we have to build it out so you can actually like ambulate Lee around and click on stuff and explore, because it's still at the end of the day an adventure game. So trying to pace out where that stuff makes sense, so that you're not just doing one thing for too long. And then obviously the story has to fit around that as well. So what makes sense for the story to be open world here, or open space? What makes sense for the story to be small here? It wasn't just writing a story, right? Like we have to make sure that it feels good in moment to moment as a game as well.
Right. I'm gonna steal this man's water.
Take this to Kendra for Doc.
I actually really like, I'd forget his name, but
Chuck.
yeah, good old Chuck.
Chuck.
He's one of those
Yeah,
guys.
he's another one. He's another of those characters that came in, I think, like pretty late. We realized that the story just needed another
Yeah,
a new face. Yeah.
Or casted thinned out a little bit at this point.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Especially everyone's
he
already
al-
so on edge,
yeah,
and it's about
Well,
to.
I
this
think he's
is-
a nice. Sorry. In contrast to episode 2, where you meet the creepy brothers, who turn out to be creepier than you
right.
even expected.
Right.
You have Chuck, who seems off-putting at first, but is actually, a great guy and gives you some good advice and doesn't mind that you are going to roll his home out of here.
Sitting in the chair.
I love this sequence where you see a guy in there and you're like, oh damn, zombie,
Another
here we
one.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like we fully, and like I remember being like, I want this to go like a jump scare. Like everything about like it's the combat reticle. I think like it goes
Yeah,
to like a red
yeah.
reticle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So
Just
like,
then.
oh man, and you're like, oh, here we go. It's combat time. I'm gonna get the drop on the zombie, and it's just a
Fight.
guy. Like I love that.
Why does he not turn? Is there any reason for that?
His whole face is smashed in. Like his whole brain. is,
Yeah,
like-
I see it. Someone did a number on his. Yep. As long as
Yeah.
you make a contact with that brain.
Yes, I think the the backstory on this guy is he was the conductor, and when the train came to a sudden stop, his head also came to a sudden stop.
And then we totally just manipulate you by putting a picture of his family.
Rude.
God, yeah.
By the way, this man never went home.
Yeah.
I guess on the topic of zombie rules of zombie, JDRF asked in the chat, why does it take Duck so long to turn? I think the answer on that is that so he's been bitten, and the rules in this world, the bite will give you a fatal infection, but he won't turn until after he's actually died. Yeah. So he is right now. He is bitten and sick, but
they don't really have any way to treat it.
Right.
What about him?
So if you did have, you know, a way to fight the infection, you know, you could have saved Duck, but or is that not the case? I wasn't sure about the bite rules
I
with.
think that like there is no cure. Like the bite itself kills you. The bite doesn't turn you. The bite gives you an infection that kills you, and then no matter how you die, you turn. But there's no cure for the infection was never like cured, so it's a terminal infection.
I mean, and humans' mouths have an unbelievable amount of bacteria in them. Like it is crazy. You know, the infections you can get from a person biting clear through your arm, even if they weren't rotting and undead. So, I definitely believe the whole situation. Oh, animal crackers. Here I go, buddy. Just gonna borrow your animal crackers.
This door's gonna hurt.
Okay. Don't mind me.
You're gonna like this.
Animal crackers in my soup. Oh, there you go. Ugh. Roadie. Love it. I've got a question for you guys. Are these the kind of animal crackers that are like more like the sweet sugary cookies, or are these the classic animal crackers? Do you know what I mean by the difference? I think I'm the only person in the world that thinks there's two types of animal crackers.
Yeah, I thought you were describing the same thing.
Well, there's animal crackers that are like literally like it's like almost biting like into like a sugar cookie.
This was the advanced animal crackers that I didn't have growing up.
Jake said it. In my opinion, these are the classic Barnum animals that are
chalky. Yeah, the gross ones.
Yeah. Okay, good. Those are my favorite. They're gross, like for real, but like I love them.
So like I said earlier, I did a bunch of really just completely unnecessary like research into how to start a train, and so everything that you do to like all the buttons you flip and all the things you have to do are effectively like quote unquote accurate to how a train starts. And I was like, how can I turn this into a puzzle? And you'll see in a moment. But like, yeah, not like anyone would really know. But I was like, man, the 3 or 4 train enthusiasts out there that also play the Walking Dead game are really going to be stoked that I was like legit about making the train starting sequence real.
Right. Okay, so I actually didn't mean to come on this side. I get turned around in this segment sometimes.
This is one of those times where like we actually and Eric, you probably could talk this a bit more than I can, but like the camera itself is the invisible wall, where like because the camera only pans like within a certain degree of radius, then like you could technically walk on the other side of the train and just go down the road, but because the camera only moves so far, it kind of obscures. Like it was a really clever trick, I think, in a lot of these Telltale games to just like use that to stop you from going where you don't want you to go.
Right.
Very thoughtful. He isn't fussy, you know.
Because as long as you have the backdrop where, like, you know, what you're seeing, everything's blocked off, but you aren't giving the player the view of, like, the open forest, you know, on the opposite side, it works really well.
Here, found some water.
Oh, thank you.
The chat's getting heated about animal crackers.
That's all I can keep
The animal cracker discourse is alive and well in 2020.
Matters.
It doesn't.
I love. So this is another thing. I think this is Sean's idea. Just like every time you bring a thing, if you care enough about Duck to deliver him like supplies to make him feel better, you get a little like story about Duck from Katya. And it's one of those like if you already like him, you'll like him more, and you'll get to know him more because you continue to bring objects, like bring like water and food and stuff to him.
Yeah.
That kind of small optional stuff I think is really, really, really powerful.
Could mean a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Right.
His body's probably fighting whatever's in it.
Exactly.
Poor
Sorry, I
Coach.
had to
As clear
duck
as
out
anything
and
to
switch
tell you about
headphones.
Doug or Doug
Oh, you're good.
anything, I'm worried about him.
No,
Poor Clementine.
that little girl is a puzzle.
I'll take a moment in this lull to mention JDRF again for anyone. I think
Great.
basically everyone in the chat is either Telltale or like my mods, but I think there's a lot of people lurking. So hold on one second. Sorry, I gotta
I'm fine.
make sure I'm not picking the wrong dialogue options while I'm talking.
He was a good
So JDRF is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and they work hard to raise money and do research to help find the cure for type 1 diabetes. And it's been a really important charity to me ever since in growing up. My best friend Blake was a type 1 diabetic, and I had known him since I was in first grade and he was in kindergarten. And he was diagnosed very early into our elementary school years. And I didn't even know what diabetes was. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew so there was something wrong. But I mean, he was fine, and everything kind of just became the new normal. You know, it just was something he had to do, was poke himself with a needle and do the insulin pump. And he, unfortunately, in 2017, he was sick and alone in his apartment, and something went wrong with his insulin pump. And everyone was out of town, so no one was there to check in on him until basically later that day. And he was found unconscious on the couch. And by the time we'd gotten to the hospital, unfortunately, it was too late. He had been basically in a comatose state for too long. And he had worked with JDRF before doing counselor for camps and doing the walks and raising money. And I knew it was really important to him and his family. So after losing my best friend of 18 years, like this happened, you know, just a few years ago. I mean, we had roomed together in college and we had, you know, been best friends all that time. So to lose him, I knew I wanted to make JDRF kind of the main focus of charities that I do because it's just so important, such an important cause to me. But yesterday we raised like $2,000, which was amazing. And today, if you guys have any money, donate, feel free. But otherwise, if anyone wants to buy the Humble Bundle, proceeds of that do go to JDRF as well. You get all the amazing Walking Dead games from Telltale. You get Telltale's Batman and Wolf Among Us. You also get the 2 games, Oxenfree and Heaven's Vault, which are also wonderful games. I've never played Heaven's Vault, but I have played Oxenfree, which is a great game. Yeah, so I highly recommend checking out the Humble Bundle if you haven't already, because it's going to a great cause, and hopefully one day other people don't have to deal with the same stuff that my friends and I have dealt with. And that's my story. That's JDRF to me. Sorry
That's
about
really cool.
Yeah, sorry for that segue.
Thank you
it's cool. It's really
for sharing
important.
your story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm also trying to remember this train puzzle. Trying to remember.
Oh man, yeah, I know. I think that like depending on what object you pick up there, like you can use it. I think there's a combat sequence where you use it to kill a zombie, and like depending on what it is, like the animations are different or something really dorky. Like, I think I played something really small like that. It's all coming back to me now slowly.
Right. Let's see here. I gotta make sure. I don't even know if I grabbed the right thing.
It's stuck. I
No.
If I remember
Oh,
any of the tools work.
yeah, because I gotta get the train moving first. I gotta
Yeah, I think
jar it loose.
you gotta turn it up, you gotta turn it on, and you also have to like decouple the. So there's like 2 things I believe you have to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is literally like the top level of as many puzzles in one sequence as we were allowed to. I got away with. I pushed the bar as high as I could.
This part stumped me the first time. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, you're not alone. Most people, in fact, even on the team, were like, "Why is this so dumb and convoluted?"
But I'm not gonna let you best me this time. In fact, I remember there's basically there's numbers over here. Let's see. Oh yeah, the notepad.
There's I think there's a notepad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
Pages are gone.
Oh man,
it's torn off. What are we gonna do?
I see indentations, but I've never seen anything like this before.
I'm almost positive that this came from, I think, Sean, who had like it was just referencing the Big Lebowski. I think here, where like in the scene in Big Lebowski where he like sees someone writing a note and like they tear it off and he like shades the page in. That was, I think, the inspiration. For some reason, there was like, oh, what if you had to do this ridiculous thing? It literally just came out of a goof, like a joke. I'm almost positive that's for that whole. Like, you can't just have the notes, right? Like the notepad has to be ripped off for some stupid video game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well.
Oh, I know what it was. Because we wanted to force you into the RV.
That's it. Yeah.
So we needed you to go into the RV. Yeah, see, it's
not
all
just
design.
Convoluted adventure game logic.
It's that plus we needed you to do it.
Maybe in the RV.
What do you need it for?
There used to be something written on
I actually, I did the leaf rubbing, pencil on the paper as a kid. So when I watched Clementine do it, I was like, oh, that's cute. Like I did that too. Like, just trying to do a normal little girl thing. But then when this scene came up, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It all comes together.
Yeah, well, we saw it earlier. I totally forgot that was in there also for a reason.
Right. Usually, I mean, most games are like this, but like if there's like a kind of a random, like the game takes a second to show this off.
Right. It's random and very specific.
Yeah.
It's up there. There it is.
Right.
Man, we messed up by not putting a clickable on the Benang. I can't believe we didn't do that.
I was looking for it, but there was nothing to interact with. I could go for some nice tasty Benang right about now.
We must have had that conversation and decided there was no like way to thread that tonal needle in this stage of the game
without immediately
I don't think there's most of the Benang references outside of Sam and Max are just visual. I'm pretty sure.
Monkey Island has some elaborate ones.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Able to just follow the steps to get the engine on.
Yes, that's beyond Benang.
It's Banana Tang. I mean, Jake would know that the long lineage of Benang more than I would, but yeah.
Okay, I got like that again. In my brain, I was not paying attention enough. Let's down, up, 3. Okay, so 2, 3, 1, 1. So 2, 3. Let's start this train.
It's literal lever switches, literal mist puzzles. So I'm sorry, but you're welcome. If that's your bag or not. I just did it once. I promise you'll never have to do this again.
I do like that we addressed the lack of an actual inventory by just letting you pull up the instructions from any of these clickables.
Yes, for sure. It's really good.
It helps a lot.
Like good.
Because I was like, oh crap! Like, how do I pull this up? There we go. Nope, wrong thing. My bad. 5. Jake says Sam had a weird line read when you look at it in 204, which Nick Herman thought was hilarious and overbuilt a huge Easter egg on it if you keep clicking.
It's very good. You should find it on YouTube. It's hilarious.
I think
there's a link to it. JDRF.
Oh yeah,
I just shared it
on top of it. So originally this puzzle was like twice as long because I was just such a dumb idiot for like making sure it was like accurate. So like apparently if you turn the engine on and you don't vent the steam out of those side doors on the side of the train, like each of those big like what look like green vents, you have to like open them and depressurize them, because if you don't, you turn the train and all the steam inside the steam engine will just explode all at once and will bend all the rods. So I had this entire thing where you had to like go and like click the things and depressurize them, and it's like, why would any normal human being A, find that fun, but B, like know to do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, wisely, I think the feedback was like, this is too long and unfun. Please make better. And I was, yeah, these things. So I cut it down, which honestly is still too long, probably.
once you get like, once you know to check the paper, and once you have like an idea, like, I mean, like it literally spells out the order to do things and such. So like once you're at that point, it's like, okay, like I know what I'm doing. But before that, I remember I spent a long time like trying to figure out like, you know, what am I supposed to be doing? I don't understand.
Yeah, and like, why would that dude write his instructions down on a notepad? Like, why would he have drawn them? It's just ridiculous. So yeah,
like, Jesus, Daryl, did you not listen to the instructions the first time? Why do you keep looking at that notepad? You've been driving this train for years. Yeah.
Might have been his first day. Who knows?
Right. Yeah. Oh, that would suck.
Right.
Oh man, the story gets sadder.
What? We're barreling down the tracks at 40 miles an hour. I don't care about the noise.
I think it was very clever to do the upcoming basically gas tanker, the 18-wheeler that's hanging over the bridge. Because I remember thinking like, well, what is this train ever going to come across that it can't just like barrel through? And
yeah,
then,
for sure.
Of course, a tanker full of gas immediately is like, oh, okay, maybe we should chill out for a second on that one.
Can you go find out where we're stuck?
That sequence changed a lot, actually.
Really?
From initial concepting. Once we get to that, we can definitely talk about it a bit more. But like, the train station was originally on the other side of the stop, and you could accidentally go past it. Like, you could tell Kenny to stop or not, and depending on which. Like, we're trying to find ways to put non-linearity into the game. So, like, if you told him to stop, you would meet Omid and Krista during the daytime. But if you didn't, you would go all the way to the end and find the overpass, which originally was a bus, not a gas tanker. And then you'd have to hoof it back to the train station, and you'd meet them at night, and like things would have changed because like the whole day had gone by for them, and like we had a whole bunch of stuff that was like interesting, but not like interesting on a game. Like, it just made the game convoluted and wasn't super fun. So we just trimmed it all the way down to like the one thing.
I imagine some of that was scoping also, just how much we could produce in the time we had.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good old Chuck.
There he
God,
is.
that intro is so good. Where he's like, the first thing he says is, "You touch any of my stuff."
You touch any of my stuff. I like him. He's got at first it's like you look at him and he's all shaggy and dirty, and it's like, oh man, I'm about to be stabbed on this train. But like, immediately his demeanor is like very soft. It's very like comforting, but not like the brothers were like a little too cheery, like a little too fake, you know. It's like no one's this genuinely happy during the apocalypse, like, you know.
Right.
Like, I've had people in my life before, like adults when I was a kid, that were the kind of adults that had big fake smiles all the time, and it's just kind of like, I can't, like, you know, you're being really passive aggressive to me right now, but you're still smiling, so I'm just gonna assume that you're not actually ever happy. Like, you know, like I'm gonna assume you're always there's always gonna be some tinge of like passive aggressiveness there. Ben, don't eat the food.
God, yeah, I love that Ben. So here's the thing about I love Ben. He's like one of my favorite characters, and I love him because he's just a big kid. And I think that was also, again, just specifically designed that like he's actually like 16, like 15, something like but he's a tall kid, so people treat him like an adult. He's closer to Clementine's age than Lee's age, right? So like he's an idiot like high schooler, but everyone treats him like an adult and puts him through the same bar, like treats him by the same like measurement stick that an adult would be treated by, but he's just a kid and he's kind of an F up.
Right.
But I think it's good. Like not all the characters have to be perfect. Like obviously none of the characters in this group are really perfect, and everyone's got their like demons. But him just being a goober and not really knowing how to survive because he's just a 15-year-old feels very real, you know.
And it's how fast the world changed. That
right.
In the old world, he wouldn't have to suddenly know how to survive.
Yeah,
that's so true.
He could grow out of his
awkward phases.
Yeah.
God, Chuck playing the guitar is such a good call.
Great.
I don't know who that was. Definitely not my call, but like, what can we do to make you love Chuck literally immediately? Well, you go and talk to Clementine, and she's like, "Hey, Chuck gave me candy. Cool. Like, he's a nice guy. Like, but like, he sits down with you, and Katya immediately says like, Chuck's cool. Like, Chuck passes the Katya test, and he pulls a guitar out and just starts strumming, and like, this unrealistically like cheery, warm bluegrass dude. I love it.
And I think we did all those things to convince the player he was okay, because we didn't want to spend a lot of time having
the suspicion, having
Lee trying to figure out if Chuck's cool. Like, okay, look at Katya trusts him. He plays guitar.
I'll talk to you.
Let's just move past this.
Yeah, I mean, like Kenny is suspicious of him, but if the player, like, we just went through the St. John Dairy, so like any newcomer, you're always going to be like hyper suspicious of. So yeah, like making sure like everyone's just on board with Chuck immediately. And he never does anything creepier. Like the St. John's, like you said earlier, like they were like made to look like fake smile guys. Like their mouths are too big, you know what I mean? Like they just look like
they're very careful with their words, you know.
Yeah, and like they say some weird stuff sometimes when you first meet them. They just say some really weird stuff and like share glances with each other in a really off-putting way. So like, what can we do to break down the wall that we've already built up, where like any newcomer is basically gonna be bad as soon as, because we want people to like, because in the next scene he's going to give you advice, and we want players to like accept that welcome like warmly and not reject it because people are trying to figure out if he's a cannibal or whatever.
Right.
Maybe we should focus on one thing at a time.
Yes. What can we do here?
Poor Kenny.
Also, it was the guitar is a rare opportunity to have diegetic music in a game, which always got to take advantage of that.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
I'll be up front. I don't want to hear any nonsense until we get where we're going.
Calm down, Kenny. Poor guy. And he's already like on edge with Lee.
Oh yeah.
So for like, I mean literally Duck is dying, and it's such a I mean, you feel bad for Kenny, but there's no stopping the arc that he's on.
Yeah, like you can understand why he kind of believes what he believes, but you've seen the bite, like you know what happens. You've seen it happen to like lots of other characters, right? But, you know.
And I love it, y'all. Like the team did a great job making Duck seem like literally worse for wear as the time progresses.
Yeah.
Like you start to see his cheeks being a little bit more sunken in, and like his face being more pale, you know, and
yeah, I think he has at least 3 different states of progressing sickness.
God, okay, so for some reason I just assumed that Lily came back to take the RV from you no matter what, but it only happens if you let her back on the RV, right? Because you can choose to leave her behind or let her back on, and if you let her back on, you go back in to get the pencil. That's why you have to go back in there to get the pencil. Like, so she could basically boot you out and steal the RV and like drive off. But I forgot that was a branch. I was like waiting for that to happen. I was like, when did it happen? And then I realized that it was because you kicked her out early, that she wasn't able to do that. Man, there's a lot of branching in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I've never let Lily join us in the RV, which is probably like kind of cool of me. I probably should have tried the other option, but someone did tell me about her stealing the RV, and I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, because I doubted that she would continue further along with us.
Right.
After.
And Yeah,
she
it
killed
stops you
somebody.
from having to answer the question of do we bring her on the train or not.
Right. That's good. Good old Clementine.
I'm gonna go get Kenny. Hold on tight in case the train stops fast.
It's such a good pose for Clem, just sitting there staring at Duck.
Yeah. I mean, like, poor girl. I mean, she, as far as I know, I mean, Duck could be just about her only friend. You know, I mean, like,
Yeah.
Up until this point, you don't get to see her life before. You know, she had her parents that loved her, and the babysitter returned. But besides that, I
Right.
mean, you don't get to see the school she went to, and whether she had friends there or not. Dang, Kenny is pissed.
I don't know if you know this or not, but you can absolutely there is a you die state in which Duck turns into a zombie and kills everyone on the train and then kills you if you play this out correctly. Where like basically you say like, hey, we need to talk about Duck, and then you just say nothing and let the timer expire twice, and he'll kick you out of the cab, and then you go back to the boxcar, and like zombie Duck has basically obliterated the entire boxcar of people. Nobody ever gets that, so I just wanted to call that out as a thing.
But
like
it's there.
1% of people have ever
state.
seen it. Yeah, it's a thing you can absolutely do.
I did it before, literally only because I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I just was not paying attention. I didn't realize all the dialogues were like timed at that moment. But
yeah,
I think we're about to see it. I
think if you say nothing a couple of times and he just sends you out, yeah, you will. Because we needed to find edge cases for like if you say nothing, or if you let the timer expire and do nothing, like what happens? Like in some places it makes sense for the game to continue, and in some places it's just like, well, in the real life, like Kenny would do something. He's a human being, so he would react. So
right.
Like, we weren't trying to find places to put in. We didn't have the scene in mind at first. We're like, well, what would happen realistically? But this just kind of just like grew out of it. But nobody ever sees it, so.
Well.
Except Chuck. Chuck probably just like jumped off that train the moment he saw that kid. Yeah.
Oh crap. Ah, jeez.
There you go.
Yep. Now you've seen it. Now we've all seen it.
Now we've all seen
it. Is yeah.
The failure.
It is kind of a silly cutscene, but I do.
Yeah.
You need to stop the train.
Oh no!
Yeah, we had to make it because
it blew my mind last time I saw it.
The rule was always that silence is an option.
Yeah.
But also Kenny would clearly react to you just storming in and then actually not engaging in any conversation.
You know he's dying.
Nobody knows shit.
Dang. Zombie Duck? Yep. Zombie Duck.
Wake the fuck up, man. This is
God, like having to go to someone and tell them, hey, stop being an idiot, your child is dying back there, is like, how the F do you say that to someone? Like,
right.
This whole scene where you're trying to get Kenny to acknowledge that he's acting ridiculous and his son is going to die, man, like,
it's all
intense.
very understandable coping.
Yeah. And by
not being able to come to terms with that.
How do you calm down? By being beat up, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding.
By getting your ass kicked. Poor guy. And I've seen the different. I've done a little bit of the fighting side. I've done a little bit of the trying to talk side. But like,
stop it, goddammit!
I mean, he's just so mad at the world, and it's not even that he's mad at Lee as much as he's just mad at the awful situation he's in. And
knock this shit off.
You can't help it. You know, I mean, it's just.
I just want to talk and relax.
Oh God, the like tap on the shoulder.
Right? Yeah. I could have sworn.
You think you're the reason Duck was bitten? Like you had this coming.
I'm trying to negotiate. I'm trying to.
You didn't kill Herschel's son.
Yes, I did. And now it's catching up to me.
God, I forgot all about this. Where like, you imply that he thinks he like deserves this because he got Sean Sean Green killed.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that whole line of brain thinking in Kenny's head. That's crazy.
Like he literally thinks karma has caught up to him. And
totally.
then his son is dying because I talked him into it. Cool. Didn't have to fight him this time. I think last time I had to throw a few fists before the train actually stopped.
I feel like most branches end up in the fight, if I remember right.
Yeah.
It's hard to navigate the peaceful solution. So well done.
Especially since Kenny is so, just so wound up tight right now.
Yeah.
I forgot this even happens. I mean, I remembered it, but I forgot it happens here.
Yeah.
This whole sequence is just like a double gut punch.
The fact that his mother even has to say it's time is such a heartbreaking.
The boy's been bit.
Yep.
In case you haven't figured that out.
Chuck's like, I wasn't gonna say nothing.
Take as long as you need.
Yeah, this is definitely a scene when like less is more as far as dialogue goes. Like you can just sort of sell it with a look without like what do you even really say here in
I feel like we actually did a pass taking lines out of the sequence where there was more written initially, and we like you said, we
What you are saying
did the less is more pass.
is foolish.
But
No.
And for this whole, I mean, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm pretty sure everyone in the chat has seen this, except for maybe my mod Espion hasn't seen it. I'm not sure, but
I mean, Jesus, this is our son.
I know.
for Katja to be the logical mind, like the voice of reason here, but then for what's about to happen,
It should be apparent.
I mean, it messed with me real bad. Messed with me.
And we spent a lot of time seeing how this is affecting Kenny and his inability to deal with it, but
I blame y'all.
Yeah, Katya's the one actually keeping it together.
Right.
Yeah, she's definitely always been the like voice of reason between the two of them, and for her to be talking about this in such a like logical manner makes the next scene like way more difficult.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, and Duck is just, I mean, does not look good. And it's great to see the different characters' reactions, because like Chuck can't be sad for Duck. He just met Duck, but at the same time he doesn't wish this upon the group. You can see genuinely he's just like, I wish these people didn't have to go through this, but that's just something they're gonna have to do.
Yeah, you get the sense that he's probably seen this before. Like the guy's clearly gone through some shit, so this is not the first time. The way he asks, like, "Hey, did the dead get your friends?" He's very clearly seen a lot of this stuff already happen. Like he's been alive for however many months in the apocalypse, so this is not the first time you see something like this.
I don't even know what to say to Clementine here.
I'm not stupid. I just want you to tell me, like my dad would.
Look, Clem, things are... What the? No! Ben,
We heard the gunshot,
go.
but Kenny seems to be alarmed. I hate it. I blame you guys.
Yeah.
Now I've officially talked to people where I could just be like, my heart hurting like a year ago when I first played this game. I know I know who to blame.
Well, again, like you can blame all of us. The whole
of course. Yeah. Don't worry. It was a group effort. You can't
like getting here and like it's Katya is such a it's such a comes out of nowhere beat where because she's been holding it together this whole time, but obviously she's been in so much pain that she hasn't shared. That realization is so difficult. It's so painful.
Like she literally just couldn't see life worth living. So the second she got a hold of the gun, she just took her way out.
Right.
And poor Kenny, almost like I almost thought like, oh crap, Kenny's gonna kill himself and now I'm gonna be, but I mean he somehow manages to hold on. And it's way more depressing that way. Because instead of like them all getting out of this terrible situation, you now have Kenny who will forever be holding on to this moment, you know.
Yep. I think this scene was Graham Ross that shorted this.
It was.
Just like it's all the little subtle movements and like the tears on Kenny's face. It's just, again, with the less is more, like it was just such a very simply staged scene, but man, it's just so
powerful.
Yeah.
No, this was the first moment in the game where I genuinely was like upset.
Yeah.
Not that other moments of the game hadn't also had like, I mean, like literally right here, I'm having to aim the reticle at Duck's head. Like, I mean, there's no taking you out of the moment of like, you know, you chose to do it for Kenny, but like it could have just cut to this shot from a distance, and it's like, oh well, it's not totally on you, but no, like you literally are the one that takes the shot.
Yeah, you have to drag the reticle over. Yeah, and it was a very deliberate decision to not put a timer on the choice as well.
I'm glad.
Or not choice, interaction.
It would have really taken it out of the situation, I think, if you had like, I don't know, seen him turn or something. If a different feeling moment like came crashing in, like zombies walking up on you or something, you know.
And like the fact that you can't, like all the people that die in this episode, like Doug and Katya and Duck, like you don't have time to bury them. You don't have time to really like
gotta keep moving,
send them off in a way that's like respectful. You know what I mean? Because you've got walkers everywhere, so you don't have time. It's just too risky to do that. Which like, you'd be able to say goodbye in like the real world,
right?
But you just can't, and it's like extra heartbreaking. I remember that scene going through a lot of revisions because we were. Like there was a version of it where you never got the opportunity to do it for Kenny. There was an opportunity. There was a version where like you always did it, and there were I remember versions, at least on paper, where like Duck was on the scale of like dying to dead, and there was a version where he was fully dead and he wasn't breathing, and then there was a version where he's kind of like wheezing and rasping out his last like breaths, and it's like really sad. And like trying to find the line, obviously no matter what, that scene is going to be difficult, but like finding the line of where is the line as far as like tastefulness goes on this beat. I remember it going back and forth a whole lot because this, again, like we talked about earlier, this is not supposed to be gleeful. This is not supposed to be like funsies, getting to shoot, getting to the we don't want to, we give you the reticle because it's part of the game, but like it's not. We really wanted the moment to land properly and for people to understand that we, the developers, know that this is not fun. Like it's a difficult thing to do.
It's not something to joke about. It's
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think it sometimes I mean, I'm not a game developer by any means, but sometimes I'll play a game where there will be some sort of either quick time event or reticle movement that's like almost takes you out of it, but I think in this scenario it really added to it as far as
like a gun.
I mean, like literally like I was saying, I mean, I was the one that had to do it, or either you like Kenny do it or you like literally aim the gun, and I ended up, I was being over dramatic for YouTube's sake, but I was like, oh my gosh, no, like why do I have to aim the gun? Oh my gosh. But at least,
I remember is a nice way to bring you back out of it.
Yeah. This is a good, like you said, segue of like, okay, well, this was terrible, but now we got to get Clementine a little bit more combat ready, because you don't want anything like that to happen to her.
Right, it's hard to argue with the logic at this point.
Yeah, I was pissed off at Chuck at first when he was like, same thing's gonna happen to you, kid. But like, his bluntness really helps Lee here, like, kind of rethink some things.
Yeah, I remember like when Chuck got like envisioned, like again, like the episode didn't include Chuck at the very beginning, but I think that in the writer's room, we kind of figured out that like there needs to be someone to give the hard parenting advice to Lee. Like he doesn't like this whole thing about like you're not a kid, you're not little, you're not smart, you're not a boy or girl. Like you are either alive or dead. That's all that matters in this world. Is stuff like the harsh truth that Lee didn't really think about and really hadn't prepared Clementine for. That kind of pulls her through the rest of the seasons of The Walking Dead. We didn't really have that moment where we kept treating her like a daughter and not like a person who just needs to learn how to survive in this world. So like having Chuck come in and be like, okay, here's what you need to know to live in this world. I've done it for X number of years now.
Right.
Was something that we didn't really know was missing until we kind of envisioned Chuck. We're like, oh, that's exactly what this should be, because of course, what else would keep her alive in this, you know?
Right. It works to have a character like Chuck. Because I mean he has been surviving on his own, you know, he has been literally living off of the land and what's around him, you know, and so for him to kind of give them a wake-up call of like, you know, you can't just treat her like a little girl, you got to treat her like, you know, a human, like one of the team members, you know. Yeah, it's sad, but it's like the truth that Lee needed to hear.
I know.
Doug saved your life, Ben. I should push you off the train right now. I love Lee's voice.
Aren't many of us left.
Yeah. You, me, and Kenny.
I think,
Clementine.
Yeah.
The homeless dude.
So much of the strength of this game is in the voice acting.
Oh yeah.
Are you gonna
yeah.
be able to step up?
I think this is the part where we figure out Ben was behind it, because so far, like, I don't think that's been revealed at all, as far as like
no, not yet.
What I found.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I think he like you go and get something, and then on your way back he grabs you. Because
okay, yeah, I think
like when you
handing this whiskey.
I can't remember exactly how the sequence goes, but yeah, like he will grab you and be like, "Hey, listen, I need to confess something to you."
Gotcha. Where'd that whiskey go?
I guess that bottle of whiskey did just go into his.
Yeah, sure.
I guess we do have some.
We had like, some discussions for sure about like, is it small enough to go into his pocket or not?
The scissors, I could believe. That whiskey's just a little too much.
Yeah, there is an inventory. I forgot about that. Never mind.
I mean, up until this point, though, it was like, you know, everything had, and I think, you know, obviously I'd played enough Telltale games to not even think twice about it. You know, I didn't even stop to consider it was Hammer Space. I was just like, oh well, you know, I mean, he put the bottle of whiskey away. It doesn't matter where he put it.
Yeah, you don't think about it unless someone calls it out, right?
Right.
What do you think about Chuck?
I don't know.
Me neither. He might be an okay guy, though.
You think?
We'll keep an open mind.
Yeah, this is the scene that was on the next time on, but like Lee is sitting on the other side of Clementine than in the next time on, and he's also wearing a different outfit. So like those were totally just like nonsense scenes.
Almost like looking into like a Back to the Future scene, but like now the time has been altered, and he chose to wear a different shirt that day.
First, don't be afraid of it. It's just a thing.
I feel like that's minor on our next time on offenses list.
I wouldn't have
Oh
ever,
yeah, oh definitely.
like, I mean, like literally when I was recording videos with my buddy, like we were doing it like episode after episode after episode, and I wouldn't have noticed that in a million years if you hadn't brought it up. Like,
sure.
I mean, like it's not a major thing. Like, hold on one second. For those who've, I've not played The Last of Us 2 yet, but for those who watched the trailer and then play the game, did y'all hear about like the major change that was from one initial trailer to the actual final game? There's a major character who's in the trailer that everyone was really excited about that you know, is not in that scene. Like the scene happens in the game and it's a completely different character that walks up, and people were pissed like immediately. But that's like a major thing, you know. That was like a huge change.
And that That sounds deliberate. Like that was
Yeah, it does.
trying to hide a reveal or something.
Right. I think
God, Clementine with the hands under the arms, like idle pose, but with the gun, like also in her hands. Very good.
This pose with Lee's hands on her ears and him like cocking his head to the side. I feel like that came from Sean Vanneman.
Yeah, he's trying to like protect one of his ears
Yeah,
from
yeah.
sound.
I remember like him coming up with that very specific. This is how the pose needs to be. Yes, that sounds good.
Yeah,
so cute.
You got it.
Excellent. Good shot.
You're ready to murder.
Again.
Yep.
I need a ruler. Smack her hand. Again.
Yeah. Where are you pulling all these bottles out of? Just infinite bottles.
Right. Yeah. Well, it helps.
Chuck's gonna be mad you shot up his bottle collection.
It's true.
No, my wishing bottles. You gotta hang those in a tree to remember your past sins. I don't know, something.
Nice.
Something southern. I'm southern enough, I should know.
It's funny. I went to school in Savannah, so like getting to see it built.
Oh wow.
And like knowing what like the building, like the hotel in episode 5 is like based on, because I walk by that building all the time. It was really rad because like we did a really good job. The team did a really good job of like recreating the big beats of what Savannah feels like. I was like, oh man, it's super weird. It just left there.
Okay, I feel good.
Not so scary, huh?
It works to have like a real location, you know. I mean, obviously, like you have liberties of like what you can change and what you can keep in, what section of the town you're in, you know, that sort of thing. But
right.
Like most games, even games with like fake towns, they usually have some sort of like real life town that they're kind of basing the design off of, you know.
Yeah.
That's not nice.
What?
Yeah, it definitely helps to
It smells.
ground yourself in something.
Because it does. Kinda.
Poor Clem and her smelly hair.
And I got mad.
Yeah.
Well, that could happen again.
If I know it's probably 7:30 y'all's time. If y'all need to head out or if y'all stick around, like whatever y'all need to do. Of course.
I need to get going pretty shortly.
I'll stick around.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
I'll wait for Clementine to get her haircut.
Oh man, her reaction to this is very good.
She's so upset that.
But she gets her trademark haircut that she keeps for like a million more seasons. So.
We didn't realize we were establishing 3.5 more seasons of canon.
Right, yeah.
Major.
Plus that hat that somehow changes size as her head grows, and that still fits her when she's like 17 or whatever.
It's one of those adjustable hats.
Oh yeah, of course.
One size
yeah,
fits
makes
all.
sense.
Yeah. At this point, the game, she has it, you know, all the way to the furthest button. By the end of the game, she has it the opposite.
The opposite way, yeah.
I don't even know what she said. I wasn't.
You're right. Before all of this, I was sent to jail, you know?
Just to learn some real truths about killing to this 8-year-old girl.
Yeah, right. I wasn't, you know, because I want to be honest to her, because I want her to, like, obviously trust Lee and have a good relationship with Lee. But it's hard to find that balance of, like, how honest am I with a kid about the world basically ending and with killing people and, you know.
Right.
And she's also a very smart character, so, like, oh.
No, you look cute and a lot harder.
God, that animation's very good.
Yes. That realization of my hair is not there anymore.
Oh, it's so short.
Aww.
All right, that'll be my cue to exit.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out.
Hanging with Eric.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for letting me talk through this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, nice hanging out with you all. Thanks everyone in chat for being here as well. And yeah, it's been great.
It was great having you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
For your last second edition.
yeah. All right. Enjoy the rest of the game.
All right. You have a good night.
Bye.
All right. It's just us, and there's no train puzzles.
Yeah, we're done. We've got the train moving.
Yeah. Just gotta get Kenny.
It's funny.
Sorry.
Get him out of the way.
Yeah.
You got to get to that map.
Yeah. What were you saying? It's funny.
Oh, just like how video games are made, like this tiling background. Like there were, I guess, people like opened the game files and kind of like zoomed the camera way out and kind of figured out that, like, yeah, obviously, as you know, most people know how video games are made these days. It's just like a couple of tiles, like looping back and forth.
Right.
But like the art team did such a good job of making it interesting, and there's no like major landmarks that you pass that make it obvious when it's looping, and it just feels like you're on the train for a long time. Like it's one of those things that you kind of take for granted because you shouldn't really notice it when it's in the background.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Making it feel good and not obvious that it's looping is a real art form.
Yes, and the trees being closer, moving much quicker to your eye compared to the trees far off, you know, and it does a good job of kind of tricking your mind's eye of, like, you know, focusing on one thing for too long.
Yeah.
Sure.
Shared a drink with Chuck. Chuck's so kind to share his train and his drink.
Right.
I was trying to remember how to get Kenny out of the cab, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, he really needs a drink right about now. Poor guy.
Yeah, like, is this the moment when you send Kenny down the route?
Oh, geez.
Down like the wine drinking. Like, 'cause I think in episode 4 he's like drinking a lot. I feel like that's a thing.
I think I remember him, like, I didn't play all of episode 4. I've only played like a portion of it because every episode has so much to take in. But
right.
I do remember him being very to himself, and I think drinking might have been a part of that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he gets a start here.
Ah, jeez.
Whatever, man. It's all worth it. You got to get that map.
Yeah, man.
What a weird puzzle too, right? Like, guy is in way, get him to drink so that you can get behind him instead of just being, hey, can I just reach behind you to get that map? Like,
right.
It's such an odd, weird, but it makes sense and it's a cool beat. But like, the game design, man, game design's weird.
Yeah, because I remember thinking, I was like, wait, why don't I just reach around him? And I'm like, yeah, well, Kenny's pissed, but like, is he literally not gonna let me get that map? And I'm like, all right, well, and then my brain immediately switches to, instead of worrying about that not making sense to me at the time, it immediately switched to, all right, how do I get him out of this room? You know, like
yeah.
You
see that little like footlocker down there where like we had to minimize the height of Lee's like step down animation because we could only get like, we couldn't have him jump down too hard because the gap was like the height gap was too big, so I had to put a little footlocker there that's make his little step up, you know.
It's all my fault.
All the ways we cheat video games. There he goes. Look, all the way we cheat these video games.
Here's the moment.
Jesus, Ben.
I know. They said they had my friend. That he
Ben
was
will
with them.
remember
Just
that.
stop. Fuck. Can we even trust you?
Yes.
Why'd you have to go and tell me that?
I hate that Ben is just now.
Take any of it back, so don't.
I mean, like you said, I mean, Ben is a kid. You know, I mean, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember being in high school. I was also in high school marching band. So for him to like be just this dorky kid, you know, and everyone, like you said, I mean, it's same. I call it like the college paradox, where like adults want to treat you like an adult when you've done something wrong, but they want to treat you like a kid when they're trying to like tell you something that they want you to know. You know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of that mentality of like, they're like, Ben, how could you do this? But he really is, you know, like, I mean, he hasn't experienced the world. He doesn't know any better.
Right, and he's also like he's making the best decisions that he can, given that he's a kid, right? Like, if you I think you can talk to him more. I don't remember, but like if you look at the logic of like, okay, he's a 16-year-old kid, and a bunch of dudes with crossbows and like guns tell him, hey, you're gonna do something for us.
They got him
like,
alone.
Of course he's gonna do that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's no way. Like, yeah, you imagine they got him alone. and they were like, hey, if you don't if you don't bring us supplies and like do this sneaky thing, we're gonna kill your friends, and if you tell them about this, we're gonna kill you. Like they've just got them, in a between a rock and a hard place. It's like that's, I think, one of the things that was really important for the story. For most of the characters, you can at least understand why they made crappy decisions. You can like look and be like, okay, yeah, I see why he made. Like, I disagree with it. He's kind of an idiot for doing it, but I understand why it happened.
Yeah.
And so making nobody like very obviously bad and no one's very obviously good. Like everyone's just trying to make decisions in this effed up world and doing the best they can. And sometimes those decisions are really, really bad. That just feels like The Walking Dead. So I think that making sure that we hit that every single time these events came up, and making sure that didn't feel like, well, he's just a jerk. Like, why just get rid of that stupid attitude?
Right.
So it was an important thing to have him be, all the characters be sort of complex on that level.
Yeah, definitely. And like you were saying, it's like you can't spend too long thinking like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Because every character does have their own limitations of like what they know, what they think, like what their personality is,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, you can absolutely be like, you were wrong for doing that. Like, you can absolutely just say, Ben, you're a dumb idiot for not just coming to tell us right away. Like, you are a stupid kid. And I think you'd be right? But I think that you could also argue, like, the best sort of decisions or like branching points in our game were ones where everyone in the room would just turn into a big argument where we're like, no, that's not a good branching decision, because no one's going to pick like X. And then the other half of the room be like, well, no one's going to pick like B. Like, no one's going to pick the B choice. Like, why would you ever do X, Y, Z?
Right.
And then we knew, we were like, oh, that's going to be a really good choice, because you can absolutely and like honestly argue from multiple different angles of like, he was wrong, or he was right, but.
Yeah, you're right. And since every choice is human, every choice is complicated. It's not like. I think that's my favorite thing about the Walking Dead series. Sorry, Kenny. I think that's my favorite thing with the Walking Dead series is that like all the choices are so gray area.
Yeah. God, that outburst of Kenny's is so good. You just can't get a break, that poor kid.
And Kenny even tears down Ben, like, shut up, Ben. Like, it's like,
yeah, he just hates everyone right now. And honestly, Ben is just a kind of an idiot too, right? So I get it. So this scene originally was, there was a bus, like a school bus, that had fallen down off the tracks, and it was fully on the ground. And you had to go. There was a going back and forth between the train station, which was behind you, where you meet Omid and Krista, these characters you're meeting here. And there's like a forklift, and I think the forklift still exists as like a prop in the train station.
Yeah, I think so.
And you had to like get the forklift back to the bus and move the bus with a forklift, which is probably pretty impossible actually, and like get it off the tracks so that the train can go through sort of safely. But I remember the argument being voiced by a couple of different people. It's like, it's a train. I would just hit the gas and just smash through the bus. To which a lot of folks, including myself, are like, with a child on board, it'd probably derail the train. But I think that really kind of cranking it up to, there is absolutely no way you would ever try to push through a gas tanker.
Right. Yeah.
There's just no world in which that seems like a good idea. Probably made this sequence a little bit stronger.
Yeah. I think it. Yeah. Because I mean, like I don't like. If it is just a vehicle like a bus, it's like, well, some players are going to be like, well, that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Right.
But when it's an oil tanker, you've seen enough movies and TV shows to know, like, oh, well, that's not going to end good. Like,
right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
In fact, when they suggested like dropping the back part of the tank so they could get the train by, even that I was like, I don't know if that's a great idea.
Yeah, you're like, oh, yeah, for sure.
But
I remember this truck behind Lee originally had like an actual government agency on like logo on the back, and we really went back and forth like, is it like in the public domain, these logos, or not? Like we really had to do some like research, and in the end, I don't think we ever got a real
answer.
I don't think we ever got a yes or a no, but we're like, we should probably just play it safe. Because we had the like Federal Bureau of Puzzles or whatever in Puzzle Agent. Like there was the FBI logo in the Puzzle Agent, and I think we like had just done that, and it was okay for whatever reason, because I think we made up we made up a department that wasn't real or whatever. But I think for this one we're like, let's just play it safe and not make any big mistakes here.
Yeah, right.
Meeting Ovid and Krista here, like these characters definitely were 100% designed to be like a breath of fresh air. Like they're fun, they're like lively, they're smart, they're like cool. Like you like them immediately just because like God, we just need a win. We have had nothing but losses this whole day, so we just needed a win.
Yes, and they're the kind of characters that like you can tell they're a team, but like I didn't quite realize that they would be like a couple until you start to realize just how much they mean to each other, and you realize what's going to be revealed at the very end of this.
Right.
And it works really well for them because, like you said, Chuck was a good change of pace, but he was still just as almost somber as everything else is in this world, because it's like, well, he's not a pessimist necessarily, but he's definitely a realist. But these guys are like, oh man, you drove a train here? That's so cool. It's just like,
yeah, they're super optimistic. Yeah,
it's like, yeah. All right.
This is another thing that like I'm pretty sure Brian Gillies did the modeling on this truck bed, and we did a lot of research on like how do truck trailers like hitch and de-hitch, and making sure that was like
made sense.
Real.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, because the general player may not know, but like, I mean,
that one truck enthusiast will be really stoked.
I'll get to know the girl.
You jerks! You can't have a coupler there. Like
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. How would he even stay on the truck when you're going down the road? Yeah,
I love that Kenny's default face is just sad Kenny now. Like he doesn't have a normal Kenny face. It's just every time you look at him when he's just got like the default face switches to just like bummed out Kenny face. It's really good.
It makes me so sad because Kenny is one of my favorite characters. So like, for him to be he's just a completely different person at this point compared to episode 1.
Right.
Like he was worried for his family, but he had his family. So like it still felt like he could take on the world, that he would do anything for his family. So it didn't really matter what was going on around. But now that he's lost them in like one immediate fell swoop, it's such a, well, now what is his character? It's going to be the lack of that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I feel smart making all these observations.
Yeah, hey. There's also as a fun little not Easter egg, but like another rare branch in when you meet me and Krista. Like if you have consistently been like silently and like been silent as much as you possibly can. I don't know the exact number of times, but like when Krista goes to like introduce herself, you can be like, "I'm Lee," or you can just say nothing and just mad dog her for some reason. She will like. I can't remember if Clementine is up there with you or not. Or at some point when you, Clementine, and Krista are all together, you can be silent to Krista, and then Krista just like starts talking to Clementine, and she's like, "He does this a lot, doesn't he?" Or like, "Does he do that a lot?" And Clementine's like, "Yeah." It's another one of those branches where like nobody ever sees it, but I love
that's
it.
awesome.
Wait for me before trying to open.
Oh man, it's like any game with choices that like actually like you'll see different options and branches. Now I want to replay it as silently.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that like we try to find ways to make that feel like a real way to play as much as possible. I don't think we really did it very frequently, just because it is very expensive to make stuff that only 1% of players will see, obviously.
Right.
But in one or two instances you can really make it sing, like you can just get a lot of bang for your buck on those moments, then it's pretty worth it if it's just like a dialogue line or whatever.
Yeah. Because like I'm thinking of games like
Sounds good.
I don't know if you've ever seen or played the game Epic Mickey on the Nintendo Wii. Have you ever heard of it?
do I do now?
I have.
And in that game, I mean, there's not dialogue choices by any means, but it's like, you know, you can either use paint and be a good guy, or you can use thinner and you be a bad guy, or you can kind of be like middle road. And when I first played, I had no idea there was a like good or bad. I assumed like you had to use both in all situations. So like it was such a middle road, like kind of, you know, there was but like, you know, when I played the second time around, I was using paint every time, and everyone's like, wow, you're such a hero, like this is such a, you know, like you do everything so good. Or you could do thinner the whole time and almost be a villain, you know, like an anti-hero.
Right, yeah.
I love games when they give you choices, so this one was definitely this definitely piqued my interest early on.
That's awesome. Yeah, so this room originally was where you met Omid and Krista, and you came in, and I think Krista or Omid had like a wounded arm, like a bandaged arm with blood on it, and you saw it, and they're like, no, I just I cut myself on some glass, and there's like broken glass everywhere. And that was another one of those like, oh my god, please tell me that like, hey, look, it's that object you picked up from the train many hours ago. See, there it is. I knew it came back, but I couldn't remember where.
I was like, and I don't even know if it was in my inventory technically until that moment, but maybe it was.
Yeah, but yeah, so you would find them, and you're like, oh my god, are you dead or not? I remember that being like a thing, but when we kind of changed that moment and made it just like, let's just make it a straight up and down nice like breath of fresh air beat, and not have this weird intrigue between like, can you trust them or not? After a bunch of your characters have died in horrible ways. I think that was the right decision, but that was the original way you met them, where like you don't know if they're bit or not, and they've just fought off some zombies. I think some like zombies, like corpses, were on the ground and stuff, and
gotcha.
Then you had to like do some this was definitely the room where I designed a bunch of like very like pick up the object, use the object puzzles. And that all got scrapped obviously for this scene, which is way better because the scene actually has something to do with the characters.
Oh yeah. This scene's actually a moment.
Yeah. What I also like about getting into this room is like in episode 2, you kind of ask Clementine to go like, hey, would you mind going through this vent? And she's like, oh, really? I don't really want to do that. And then in this episode, she's like kind of coming to her power a little bit, and she's kind of like ready to help out.
Yeah, she understands her abilities, you know, she understands her usefulness.
Yeah, so these guys are wearing the like same uniforms from the truck on the overpass, so you can kind of get this idea that maybe they, you know, were attacked, or, you know, something happened that made them have to take shelter in here and then they died, or like trying to make sure that all of the world's internal logic kind of made sense, and you can kind of fill in the gaps with just the general, like you can just kind of imagine what's between the gaps. Was definitely a thing that I think I really learned from working on this team, like making sure that all of that stuff just makes sense, and even if you don't catch it, it just doesn't conflict with each other. Like all the pieces don't conflict. Was a thing that I definitely learned.
Like I remember the woman in episode 2 wearing her like save lots or whatever the vest is, and it's the vest that says, you know, how may I assist you, or whatever. But then like that would have been a little jarring if it weren't for the fact that literally like all around her are the save lots boxes, you know, that either she clearly worked at or she clearly got these supplies from. So
yeah, this moment where Clementine has the gun and you've taught her how to shoot, but she doesn't have the like the nerve, I guess, because she's an 8-year-old girl. Because that was one of those tentpole moments that like, yeah, it's a huge amount. Like you've kind of they told her on a mechanical level how to use this gun, but you never really prepared her for what it would feel like to actually
in the moment.
Yeah, and so like that's what the scene kind of became, and watching Clementine like reminding you like, oh, she's just a girl actually. She's just an 8-year-old child that you're trying to train. You know, we can say that she's just a survivor, but she's still actually just a child. And doing what we can to kind of like remind you of both sides of the argument every so often. Like she needs to learn how to survive. Yep, absolutely. But she's also a kid. Don't forget. Like it was that back and forth that adds a lot of like texture to their relationship.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool.
Because I mean, like, and like this woman here is like, I mean, you know, immediately it's like, you know, why would you even put a little girl in this danger?
Totally.
And it's good to have both. It's good to have like, yeah, you need to be prepared for the real world, and this is the real world now, but also like have that moment of but she is still just a little girl, like, you know, like,
Yeah,
right.
I think that making sure that you always feel like, am I doing a good job training this child? Like, I'm not a father, and I don't really know how to be a father. And everyone I meet is like giving me the stink eye whenever I do anything with this kid. And like trying to navigate that is really, I thought it's just a really cool dynamic. And you have people who are just like, yep, you're doing fine, you're doing your best. Like it's never easy. You're going to screw up a lot. That's what parenthood is. And then other people are like, don't you dare put that child in danger. I'll risk you alive for it. Like,
Right.
all of those are believable, you know?
Yeah. Very, very true. And it also goes hand in hand with this couple's situation, like, and what they haven't revealed to Lee yet. And for her to be like immediately judging Lee for how she's treating this little girl that he's been gifted with, you know?
Yeah.
It's an interesting. All right, now we're gonna blow torch this sucker.
So this was, I think, was for some reason I felt like you held it in your hands. Maybe you do when you get to the top. This is one of those like, oh, that object's probably not big enough to like go in his adventure pocket, you know. But like, I think we just did it anyway. Yeah, it's in his inventory. Like, I think we had a whole animation set where he walked back and forth with the gas can with the like blowtorch.
Yeah.
I don't remember why we didn't use it, but yeah, it was one of those arguments like that we had. Like, I don't think they can fit in his pocket. That's not believable.
I feel like the climb up the ladder probably caused some issues. It's probably a lot easier.
You're probably exactly right.
Yeah.
That's probably exactly what it was.
Because it's a lot easier to just be like, no, look, it's just in his inventory, compared to, wait, where is it when he's climbing up the ladder? Like, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think that like trying to figure out where the line of gameism, like game logic, can get us, and sometimes you just have to shrug and go, well, it's probably fine. Actually.
Right. Because yeah, I think in that moment it's a lot better to have the whole situation be a little silly, but it be so subtle that you wouldn't have thought about it, compared to like it all being real, but then one situation is like it doesn't make sense. And then it takes you out of that moment. So, good night, Cypher. Thanks so much for hanging out.
No, but I'm gonna dangle you over that ledge.
I have no idea who else been lurking, but
this sequence where you like there's an escalation to doing something, and then you have to like get him, like you have to like lean him out over the edge, like the normal thing you're trying to do that is now like compounded with difficulty,
right?
And then it's compounded again when you see like an entire army.
And I remember
I love that stuff.
I just remember initially being like, why in the world are all these zombies on top of us? But then I remembered the amount of like talk about like everyone's like, well, think of all the noise, you know, like even Lee, you know, like a lot of his dialogue options are like, you know, but this thing's noisy. And Lee's like, Kenny's like, who cares? We'll be moving, you know, like it doesn't matter how noisy it is. Like, we're not going to stop, but.
Yeah. I think we went back and like tried to punch that up too. I think we went back to like, there's a shot when there's just an insert shot of the train like rumbling down the tracks, and the tracks like vibrating and making noise. That we really tried to remind players like, yep, this thing's just continuing to make a lot of noise. Don't forget.
Yeah, right. Don't forget like literally every action has consequences.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous adventure game, like, or a really ridiculous action game kind of end. Like, The Walking Dead doesn't really do a lot of this kind of stuff. It maybe does one every so often with like a massive horde. Like they call it the Horde, right? And it's like hundreds and hundreds of them.
Right.
And we felt like we could probably get it, like given the technological place Telltale's engine was at the time, like we weren't sure we could pull it off, and I think we did a really good job of like getting it feeling really good. But we tried to find like, where's the one place we can do a huge horde of zombies that like budget wise we can afford to do and like logically makes sense given the story and what else is going on. So
right.
Oh man, you just left a meat back
Yeah,
there.
I'm sorry. I actually usually had saved a meat first, but I remember, you know, him being like, "No, don't save me, save her," and like, so I was like,
Right.
"Oh, I'll save her," but like, for a briefest of seconds,
The wounded dude.
Yeah,
You pushed him off the truck. Off the bridge.
I pushed him off the bridge and didn't save him. Oh man, didn't mean to do that. I was thinking, I was looking back with hindsight, being like, "Oh, maybe I should do this time," but I just looked like a jerk.
That dude right off.
I looked just like Larry, like, you know, like, you're gonna.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, right. But him pushing me down in front of the zombies, being like, you know, you stay here and rot. But not as bad as that, thankfully. Aww. There's a drawing of their family.
Yeah, we tried to like bring up her walkie-talkie a bunch in this episode for the same reason, where like we wanted to remind players that she had, because that's why she's like, hey, look, I put stickers on this walkie-talkie.
Right.
A bunch, again, to remind players that she has this walkie-talkie and has had it and was talking to her parents. Yeah, one last tug at the heartstrings, right? Again, because it was one of those things that you just kind of forget that she had, and
especially since
we really wanted to make sure.
I'm sorry, I was just saying, up until this point, like, you think it's busted. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like you just kind of imagine that she's been talking to her quote unquote parents, which is just like, oh, she's just having like an imaginary conversation with her dead parents, and that's how she's coping because she's 8, which is revealed to not actually be the case in a moment.
Right. Yeah.
You'll never get over today.
That's all I keep thinking.
Try to think of.
God, telling Kenny you'll never get over today. Jeez, wow. Like that being an option, like just that being an option on the wheel is just wild, man. What a harsh thing to say.
I didn't know what to. I mean, I was like, last time I was like, you're gonna be okay, but I was like, I don't know. Maybe I should be more realistic about it, because obviously he's not. It's just not the kind of person Kenny is.
Like tough love Lee. I mean, like Lee can say some pretty rough stuff.
Oh yeah.
But man, that was a.
I got your parents right here, and you be sure to find me whether Lee wants you to or not. Now, what I need.
Oh crap.
I thought that fucking thing was broken.
And it was such a big moment, because it's like, I mean, you know, this is in episode 3, so obviously, you know, like, there's still 2 more episodes of like twists and turns, but like you kind of come up to Savannah and like the sun is setting, and
yeah,
you've got the past behind you, and it's just kind of like, okay, like maybe we can find that boat, maybe we can start a new life, and then all of a sudden there's this mysterious stranger who's been talking to basically your little girl, and like,
we're almost at the river.
You
want to get on a boat?
Yeah, it's like we can never just let you have anything nice, right? So like, you're like, oh man, we finally did it. We overcame a bunch of challenges and we made it to Savannah. Things are gonna be all right, and then it just, yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah.
It's probably a little unrealistic that walkie-talkie could like work all the way like hundreds of miles to Savannah, but you know what? Video games.
Yeah, I was a little confused that like, it's like, wait, it's cutting in and out here, but like she's been talking to somebody on the train ride over, like, you know, but I didn't think about it too long.
You are not the first to bring that up,
right?
And you're not wrong, for sure.
No, it's fine. Also, I have no idea who is talking to her, because I have not played that far in episode 4, so it'll be really interesting. Actually, I thought this was going to be the only time I was going to be streaming on the JDRF channel, but turns out I've been given the green light to stream more of The Walking Dead next week. So, I'll actually get a chance to play 4 and 5 finally for the first time. So I'm really excited about it.
Wow, some of these really normalized over the years that this game has been out, but the did you shoot duck choice very clearly has not. Wow.
Oh yeah. I've been shocked to find that so many choices are so 50 and 50, but it makes sense, because so many of the choices are like so on the line. But
But I mean, like the game's just been out for 8 years, so I think over
Right.
time, as people experiment to see both branches, you just kind of get. I have no idea what server this stuff is on that it's still like accessible after 8 years.
That's what the other guys were saying. They're like, "What computer is still processing this? Like, what?"
Yeah, it's in some basement, some Windows 95 machine is just sitting on the floor in some broom closet that's still
Yeah.
aggregating all this data.
There's some woman cleaning up a dusty old basement, and there's just a single computer in the back corner, just whirring away. She's
Right.
just like, "Oh, okay." She unplugs it. All the stats are gone. But
Right.
yeah, no, I think Emily in the chat is mentioning there really wasn't a downside to shooting duck, as far as I don't think there'd be much of a moral dilemma there.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's not even a thing of like it's awful, like no one wants to shoot duck. I mean, like I'm sure there's players that do, but like, any any person who has like half a heart is like, I don't want to do this, but obviously Kenny has gone through something that you can't even imagine. So to then hand him the gun and be like, I remember the first time I played this game, I literally thought to myself, if I hand Kenny this gun, he's gonna shoot himself. And
Yeah, and like that's definitely part of that. That is not necessarily intentional, but
Right.
like we wanted to give you like, are you really willing to give this dude a gun who's literally lost? Like that's 100% a valid thought to go through your mind in that moment.
Because I remember thinking, I was like, okay, I doubt that the game at this point is going to give me the option of either I shoot duck or Kenny shoots himself. Like thinking logically, like
Right.
as a gamer, like I'm like trying to think through every choice. Like, well, if I do this, what's going to happen? But at the same time, I was like, but I mean, if this was real life, I don't think I'd want him to have a gun in his hand at this point.
Yeah, that's like one of those things that like we said a lot at the office back in the day. Like the actual Telltale game is experienced as that timer goes down, and you imagine like your brain explodes into like the galaxies of possibility that you possibly like, maybe literally anything can happen. And as that timer is going down, you have to sort of like pick one thing, and all the options collapse down into like the consequences. Like the choice itself is interesting, but the consequences are more interesting.
Right.
So like that's the actual Telltale game, right? So like letting the player think of like all of the horrible things that could possibly happen as you have like 8 seconds to make a choice was the real like that's the Telltale game right there.
Yes. And immediately regretting the choice, or like maybe there's a brief sigh of relief and then there's another choice right after that.
Yeah, like I think a lot of folks who did tell Kenny to shoot duck were like, this is a family matter. That's not up to me. Like that's not my place to take like this moment of saying goodbye and like dealing with this problem. Like you can agree or disagree with the logic of that 100 different ways, but I think that after talking to folks who played this game, like definitely there were some arguments. Like I just didn't feel like right for me to do this thing that felt like a family issue or like a family thing that he should do.
Like almost like you could give him some form of closure. I mean, like, obviously, like it's in my mind, I'm like, okay, him watching his wife kill herself and then him shooting his son is no variation of closure. But like,
right.
I don't know. I can see how players would be able to make any option look, feasible in the moment, right?
Yeah, I remember. We took this episode to PAX 2012, I want to say, and we were demoing the game, and basically we had the entire game for play. It wasn't like just a 30-minute demo. And like there were people that we just let play the whole. Like they just came and we let them. We didn't have like a timer. Like, oh, you got to get off now. For future games, like when we worked on Tales from the Borderlands,
right.
There was a cut off. It's like, thanks for playing, but we just didn't do that for this game. I think it might have been one of the first PAXs we had gone to. So I remember a relatively famous individual who I'm not going to name came up to me, and I thought it was for an interview because we were all kind of doing interviews at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was introduced, like one of the PR guys like brought him over and said, hey, like this is so and so. He wanted to talk to you guys, and I immediately went into like PR interview brain mode, where I was like, "Oh, hey!" Like, put my hand out to shake his hand. I was like, "What did you think of the game?" And he just like stared at me and was like, "How could you do that?" And I like awkward laughed because I thought he was joking.
Right.
But he had been, apparently he was a new father, and like he came directly to the creators of the game and were like, I can't believe you made me do that. That was like really effed up.
Man.
And I felt horrible, right? Like I felt so bad that that we'd had that reaction, that it was such a strong reaction. But also like that was this is a real, this is supposed to be a serious piece of media, and we weren't trying to make you feel bad. Like it wasn't supposed to be like torture porn, you know. We weren't trying to like get that we're going to manipulate you, but it was a Walking Dead story, which is dark, and it's true to the comics where nobody is safe, nobody.
Right.
And so I explained all those things, and I tried to like do that conversation, and I felt so bad because like he had a really emotional reaction to this moment, and I thought he was goofing on me, but he was absolutely serious, and I kind of like laughed it off, and I feel like I probably made him think I was not taking him seriously, and then I had to immediately backpedal, like, whoa, oh, you're serious? Ooh,
yeah, like
yikes. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's walk through it. Like let's
oh man,
chat about why we decided to go this way, and I felt really bad. One of my least proud moments in the games industry.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, and you, like you said, I mean, you want to, like, on one hand, you could say like, oh, it's a video game, it's a game, like, you know, none of this is real, right. But like it is art, you know, it is a piece of media that is going to invoke feelings, and some players are just going to play it like a game, and it might make them feel a little bit bad, but they're going to be like, oh well. But there's people in different walks of life that are going to really connect, and it's going to be really powerful. And I think that's really neat. You know, I know that was
it is, yeah.
I know that was an awful, scary moment in that in that interaction, but it just goes to show.
I mean,
the power.
Yeah, you know? It's real. Like the way you feel, like your feelings are real, right? Like your emotions and your reactions to things are real, and we want to. That's what we want, right? Like we want you and Lee to have the same emotional reaction to these moments. When Lee, like the moment in episode 2 when he comes downstairs and Larry's like being a piece of crap to you, and you can be like, you know what, F you, Larry, eat up. Like that moment it's a joke, but it's really resonant because you want to say that exact thing. You want to F Larry off in that moment, and then the buttons fade up, like the choices fade up in that moment, and you see the like F you, Larry, eat up, and you're like, that's, oh my god, I wanted to press that button before I even knew it existed. Right. And like you mash that button, and anytime we get that reaction of like Lee gets to do a thing that I am so badly want to do in that moment, then the Telltale game is kind of pumping on all cylinders. But to get that, you have to get emotionally invested, which means, you know, happiness, sadness, and all the things in between, right? So yeah, you can't have a Walking Dead game without, you know, if we put this in Tales from the Borderlands, which I actually tried to do, it would go differently. But in a Walking Dead game, it makes more sense. You know?
Right. Wow, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh yeah, this has been great. It was definitely it was nice. It was good because I've played episodes 1, 2, and 3, so now I'll be able to play 4 to completion, and then I'll get to experience 5 and all of its hectic glory.
Oh yeah. I think the episode, like Eric said, has as much content as a normal episode, as previous episodes, but it's extremely branchy. So it's like it's thick, not long. You know what I mean? Like it's deep but not as wide.
Yes.
And it's very, very branchy. So yeah, it's really interesting.
So you're gonna you can experience a very different situation depending on, you know, the end result is the same, but like, you know, you're gonna see different sides of it depending on how you play.
Yeah, and it's the culmination of all of the branching. Like all the branches collapse, all the singularities collapse into this episode, right? So all of the things that you've, not necessarily every single choice, but like this is when all of we're no longer branching out, we're collapsing in, right? So you're going to see a lot of different content based on how you've acted, like what you said to these characters, who's still around in your group, like how you choose to, like, it's just, you know, it's like a regular Telltale game, but like amped up, right? So it's wild how different it can
get.
That's
awesome. I'm super excited for sure.
Yeah.
The stats here, I just want to go over real quick. Majority of players did not shoot the girl in the street, and I feel bad about that. that I've added to that stat 2 times now. I mean, like you almost like not I mean, it's not like I had become hardened by what I'd seen previously, but Kenny makes a good point of like, if you want supplies, leave her. That gunshot is just going to bring them right to you. And
yeah, and it does.
And
it shrinks your timer down by like half.
Oh man, yeah, because I remember thinking, I was like, well, it's not even about like, I was trying to think of it more as like, well, if I'm shooting her to put her out of her misery, it's not just preventing her from being bait. It's immediately bringing the zombies' attention to us, like,
yeah.
I think that was my reasoning.
Yeah, you'd be right. I think that, like I said, if you shoot her and she goes down and they hear the gunshot, they rush you way faster.
Yeah, and we're in the minority of like, we abandoned Lily, and the majority of players took her. I mean, like, a pretty much split majority, but and then we talked Kenny down, even though 55% of players decided to brawl. Obviously the majority of players shot Duck, and I don't see that changing. And then you and 39% of players did not help Omid. So I helped him last time. So last time I was in the like majority of, well, yeah, he's got a hurt arm, I'm gonna pull him up first. I don't know what made me, I mean, like, literally, like, not to spoil too much, but she's expecting, right? Yeah.
I don't think they bring it up until I don't think she knows yet. I can't remember. I honestly don't remember if she knows yet or if they just don't. I can't remember. She might be expecting right now. I can't be sure.
I could have sworn they brought it up in this episode, but I remember him going, "Don't save me, save her." And I remember that kind of striking me as a, oh, okay, so they're like, this isn't just a team thing. Like, he'd be fine dying if it meant saving her. Like, obviously there's more here. And I think the next episode kind of starts to point out why.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that they know they're expecting, but you don't find out till later. Like, I think there's a scene where you can offer her booze, and she's like, "No, I can't." Or
right.
Like that.
Yeah.
And then it comes out later. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, all the episodes, there's just so much packed into every episode that like it all when I look back on it, it all blends together. I'm like,
yeah, for
like,
sure.
wait, was that an episode 1 thing or an episode 2 thing that happened there?
Oh, trust me, that happens to us. That happened to us when we were making the game.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Directed by Eric Parsons, written by Sean Vanneman. Harrison. Y'all are all there.
Yeah. Hey, now you know for real that we did it.
Yeah.
We didn't just say we did it.
Hear that? I've got a personalized copy of the game on my PlayStation 4.
That's true.
Yeah. No, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a blast streaming with you guys.
That was my pleasure.
Yeah. It was nice. I know yesterday was like super, I mean, like high energy as far as donations go, but it was nice to just kind of relax and deal with the terrible feelings of guilt.
Yeah, it's a hard one to like get stoked and like donate money during seeing a child die, I suppose. So sorry about that. But it's still a pleasure. So at the end anyway. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Tinsy Dragon in the chat is my buddy Justin, and Justin, you do not have to do anything. He'd said something to me about how much he had planned on donating, and I don't know if I don't know if he actually is going to, but I told him already he didn't have to, but he said before you go I have to do something, so I guess I'll wait a second. But yeah,
way up to the credit.
Yeah. This game, it's real nice to play through this again, episodes 1, 2, and 3, because with you guys pointing things out to me, I'm noticing way more than I did the first time around, as well as now that I know what's happening, I'm noticing way more this time around as well. Oh my gosh, hold on one second. So Justin, oh my gosh, donated.
Oh man, wow.
$1,500. That's
awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Justin, you certainly did not have to do that. And Anonymous
That's awesome.
for $30. Thank y'all so much.
Wow. Y'all rule. That's really great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So Justin in a tweet before yesterday's stream, before like as of that moment, we had $70. So he had said at the end of tomorrow night, I will match every donation up to $1,500. And I would and I saw that after we had made the 2,200. So I was like, hey man, you don't have to do that. Like if you delete your tweet, I won't tell anyone. But like but that's
awesome.
Genuinely amazing. Thank you. And anonymous donor for 30, anonymous donor for 20. Thank y'all so much.
Awesome.
Like
that's really great. I'm glad. I'd seen that bar shoot up at the very end there. It was very dramatic.
Oh my gosh, that was a great ending. That was like
yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Justin, for the donation. Thank you so much to Harrison for hanging out with us. Really appreciate
my pleasure.
Really appreciate you guys. Definitely we'll be streaming more. Should be streaming more of The Walking Dead next week. I don't know when at the moment. Me and Emily will knock out the details. But yeah, this is all going towards our August charity event, where anyone who can stream is more than welcome. There's still time to join the team to help raise money for JDRF to help fight type 1 diabetes. And if you submit it by July 22nd, you have a chance to be on the front page of Twitch during the event. Yeah, I did that last year, and it's one of those weird things where like there's 8 different videos on the front page of Twitch at all times. So like it doesn't necessarily mean people are like actively watching you at all times, but the views are like crazy high, and you'll have a bunch of random people just like jump in trying to figure out what's going on.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's really cool. It's cool that Twitch has done that two years in a row for JDRF. I think that's really neat.
Nice.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. It was super fun to play this game again.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. Cool. And I guess until next time, we'll see y'all later.
Later.
All right. See you, Harrison.
Later.
And unfortunately, this stream is over, but we'll see you very soon.
Hey, this was really fun.
We hope you liked it too. We really do.
Seems like we're just begun
when suddenly we're through.
Unfortunately.
Goodbye, good friends, goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
For now, it's time to go.
I really do hate to say it.
But hey, I say, well, that's okay.
Yeah, it is.
'Cause we'll see you very soon, I know.
Yeah, super soon.
Very soon, I know.
Ooh, get it.
Goodbye, goodbye, good friends, goodbye. And tomorrow's another day.
Caleb, Robot, and the Brofist crew.
And you'll be ready for you to come and stay. To watch a Let's Play another day.
Bye, guys.